As the leader of the Booner Pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the f*** up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys.
Welcome.
I love that fucking intro.
I'm
so
hyped.
I love that.
So hype.
How do you not?
No.
Shout out to Roman for that. We are back. And it is Wednesday, August 7th. We're going to get into some Lions today. Booner is going to be here at 8:30, so he'll be here when he gets here. John Maakaron will be on the show as well at 9 o'clock. The entire second hour, we're hanging out with the Doc. We don't know what he's out in New York, so he's going to be a little delayed, but you never know what the Doc's bringing to the table. All right, he's got all the insight. Can't wait for that. But boys, how we feeling? We got Mike back. It's a good day.
He's back.
Yeah, I'm ready, boys. I haven't seen the Doc in like a week too, so I'm excited to hear his thoughts. I'm sure he's got a lot of takeaways that we're gonna go through. But I'm hyped. How are the boys?
I'm hyped, fellas. Hey, I was just telling Jeff before, got my first run-in since Nashville, and it felt terrible. Felt better after. And you know what's tomorrow, fellas? The first taste of Detroit Lions football. I can't wait. Have the Doc on right before, and then tomorrow we'll have the stream for the show. I'm hyped, fellas. I'm hyped.
Mm-hmm. Football is back. I mean, think about that for a second. The preseason tomorrow. You know the Chiefs are playing some of their starters, or actually, I think most of their starters for a little bit. But they've been doing that. That's how Andy Reid operates. So, You know, the Lions will not be. But it seems like the Chiefs, that's just kind of their philosophy. They just the Pat Mahomes will be out there. Did you see the behind the back pass he had in practice? You see that one?
No. I just know that dude's going to be on it. There is no unless injury, knock on wood, because I don't want to put injury on anybody, especially the face of the league right now. But I don't see any way that Patrick Mahomes is not MVP at the end of the season. There's no way he's not.
I don't either. It was ridiculous. It was one of those. It's like the red zone play where it's like probably a 2-3 foot pass. I mean, it's not like but he behind the back, and hey, it worked. I don't know. He's going to do it in a game, I'm assuming. But the Lions also had joint practice this week, and they were officially fined. Them and the Giants were both fined $200,000 for multiple fights that broke out at joint practice, at the joint practices between the clubs. All NFL clubs were reminded in a memo sent out last month that fighting and unprofessional conduct at joint practices will not be tolerated. So they taking it pretty serious. I mean, I get it. I'm not mad at this because it got a little too much. All right, a couple. You know, we talked about it the first day. Couple scraps. It is what it is. The next day you have more, and then the Kirby Joseph versus Malik Neighbors fight night happened. They're gonna know now. They'll know now.
Whatever. $200K, well worth it for the Lions' sake. They got their licks in. You know that mentality. Got pushed forward. It is what it is. We move.
Yeah, they showed grit, and $200K to an NFL organization is not anything. That's pennies and dime. So I mean, this is really not. I wouldn't even say this is a slap on the wrist. It's just, hey, you're going to get fined. I obviously think Dan Campbell addressed it. It's not a good look for the team, but there could be worse looks. You could just be getting absolutely dominated by the New York Giants. Like if Malik Neighbors slaps Kirby Joseph right there and he does nothing, like I'm sorry, like I would probably be more like embarrassed of that than the fight.
No, that's facts.
Yeah, I don't think Sheila. I mean, she's looking at this. She's scoffing at this. I mean, okay, whatever. I mean, I'm sure Dan has reminded the guys like, all right, we can't be ending practice early because of fighting. So we gotta lock in here because we have a team to prepare for when we get through our regular season schedule. Because at the end of it, you're going to be playing the 49ers, and you guys see the news. Brandon Aiyuk, they're getting a deal done with him, and it seems like the Pittsburgh Steelers are the front runners because you got to think. Brandon Aiyuk isn't just going to go to any team. He's going to want to go to a team where he'll sign an extension and where, you know, the team has to give enough in order to acquire him. B, they have to offer Brandon Aiyuk the right amount of money. And then C, he has to want to play there. So you need all those three things to align. Patriots tried, didn't work.
Did you see how much they offered him?
They offer. I read that the 49ers love the deal. Like they were like, we would love to take this deal, and he was just.
Well, I'm saying, like, did you see what the Patriots were gonna pay? They were gonna make him the third highest in the league, right above Amon-Ra. So they were gonna say they were gonna make him. They were gonna give that man the bag.
Well,
And
that's
Aiyuk, obviously knowing that, says no. So he's gonna be very strict on where he goes, to Jeff's point.
yeah, and the Patriots probably not, the most ideal situation right now. Playing, you probably have Jacoby Brissett for most of the year, and then hopefully, I think Greg May is going to be good. So unless it's just a lot of question marks there. At least the Steelers, you go play for Mike Tomlin. Like, I understand that. It seems like that's the likely route at this point. They're going to work out that deal. It seems Mike Tomlin, he's been getting clipped all a day. Him talking to media, and he's all happy and, smiling and all excited. And I think that's where it's heading, is Brandon Aiyuk is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. So, yeah, I guess Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, they'll figure it out. They need a wide receiver like him. They're going to get it. And I tweeted this out, fellas, how it affects the Lions. And I'm going to ask you guys this. But I put this tweet out, and it was just doing some research today, looking at how his effect, what his effect in the 49ers will be when he leaves and how it benefits the Lions, because I right here, Brandon Aiyuk was Brock Purdy's go-to receiver when passing 20-plus yards down the field. Like that, the data proves that. He saw 38.8% of the team's targets downfield. So all they have left after a departure of Debo would be, of Brandon Aiyuk would be Debo, because Debo had some big plays last year as well, and he's had some while he's been a 49er. Now, the problem is he just can't stay healthy. So the loss of Brandon Aiyuk, very significant. I think it's more significant than people probably think. And I know 49ers fans would probably understand that. But I do think this means not that the number one seed is a given, but I think it brings the 49ers just kind of a little bit back down to earth, because now, Lucas, unless your guy Ricky Pearsall is very, very good year one.
Who else are you sleeping on?
Or Juwan Jennings can fill a void, then it's going to be tough. They still got weapons. I'm not denying that. But Brandon Aiyuk is a big loss. He just is.
Yeah, I mean, as Lions fans, there's some of us that are worried about Josh Reynolds leaving because he's a wide receiver 2, and Brandon Aiyuk, you could argue wide receiver 1 or 2, but that's a completely different type of loss, because he had 1,400 yards, whatever it was, and it was only on 75 catches. Most of the time when you have that amount of yards, you're going to have 100 to 120 catches, but that's just how much of a big play factor he was. Who's going to stretch the field for him? Ronnie Bell? They got Jalen Coker out of Arizona as a rookie. I don't think there's any way that the 49ers are going to be able to stretch the field vertically, which was honestly what the Detroit Lions struggled with last year. And if you think about where the 49ers really took over, it was on that play to Aiyuk down the middle of the field with Kendall Vildor, a deep play. There's not really going to be that threat in that offense if Brandon Aiyuk leaves. So for the Detroit Lions, who just improved on their secondary, how do you beat the 49ers? You make Brock Purdy uncomfortable. And if he doesn't have his favorite target and Brandon Aiyuk available, you can send the house at him. And this is really what you're going to see what Brock Purdy is made of. And I think if he's not able to carry this team past the loss of Brandon Aiyuk, this is definitely a situation where, 1, the 49ers not going to be the 1 seed, and 2, I could very well see the LA Rams being the one winning that division if this is what happens.
I like that. Yeah. I like that
take. Like, for every reason Lucas just said, I think it got a lot easier to play defense against the 49ers when you lose your quarterback. But I just got to wonder, what's the return going to be for them if they weren't taking the Patriots deal that they like so much? And who is going to be that guy to step up? Because, like you said, him and Brock Purdy had that type of relationship. They look pretty comfortable out on the field together. And that's not going to be easy to replace. So if the 49ers want to remain a top team in the NFC, someone's going to have to step up big time. And I don't know if I trust Juwan Jennings or Ricky Pearsall this early in Ricky Pearsall this early in his career to step up and, take that big of a step to cover a Brandon Aiyuk loss. So I'm curious, because that could be a really, really big hit for that offense if, they don't really have a guy behind them that they trust that well.
No. And I would argue too, not just the down the field stuff, but just moving the chains. It's going to affect them. I mean, Brandon Aiyuk, I wrote down here, 49ers had like 200 first downs on the year, first down passes, because obviously they had Christian McCaffrey. Brandon Aiyuk accounted for 61 of those. So, a little over 1/3. I think that's the right math. But he is not just a big playmaker, and we saw it, and hate to bring it up, on Kendall Vildor in the NFC Championship game. We saw what he can do, but more than that, just moving the chains. And he's a guy that, Brock Purdy, he's moving outside the pocket. You need someone to make a play. If Debo's out or Debo's not open, then it's Brandon Aiyuk. And George Kittle's still very good, but who's the true X there? I mean, I think you're asking a lot out of Juwan Jennings. I mean, it's just, and I like Juwan. I think he's a fine player, Klotz. I think he's a fine player.
think that's
but
a very good way to put it.
You got to find a way to fulfill some of that, 1,300 yards. And that was with Juwan Jennings. So he's got to do even more. Or Ricky Pearsall's got to have just an incredible rookie year. And they're working out Robbie Chosen. Oh,
God.
Yeah, they're working him out.
That's like his 10th
And how
flyer.
does Juwan Jennings do when he's matched up with most of the other team's best corners? Because Aiyuk was getting a lot of good matchups. So
yeah,
I don't know how that's going to take over. Obviously, Deebo Samuel isn't going that far down the field and sometimes lined up inside. So when you're getting the best corner outside, you're going to need a lot from one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to just rely on Christian McCaffrey even more than they already were, too, especially in the receiving game. Like, they're going to need him to do what he was last year as far as getting the amount of carries that he does, unless they think Elijah Mitchell is going to be able to revive his career. Maybe he can. They're going to need that to at least somewhat happen. But Christian McCaffrey, the workload that he got last year, and you just think about all the injury history he has, I don't know if he's going to be able to repeat that going into this season as well, and potentially even more of a workload.
Yeah, I see some comments here, like even Jeff. He says, with or without Aiyuk, I'm not afraid of the 49ers fringe playoff team regardless. I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go, Bucks fan, Jeff, I understand that. I guess where I'm coming from is the 49ers are a good team. They obviously have made it known that they're prioritizing Trent Williams, which they rightfully should, over extending Brandon Aiyuk. If you're going to pick one, Trent Williams right now, you got to take care of him. He's the first or second best tackle in football. We know what he is. Brandon Aiyuk's looking to get paid. Like, it makes sense. And I always believe, and when we go back to positional value, which I know people hate, personally, unless you have a wide receiver that you think is just too good to not pay, too good, to not pay, then you have to pay him. But, I mean, wide receivers are coming out every single year. I mean, George Pickens, speaking of the Steelers, very good wide receiver. He was drafted in the second round. So, I'm around fourth round. Juwan Jennings was not I don't think he was even a first round. He wasn't a first round pick, but Ricky Pearsall wasn't a first round pick. And Brandon Aiyuk wasn't a first round pick. So I think they'll be fine. This year, I think they're going to hurt, but I think they understand that with Brock Purdy. I think he's a fine quarterback, but you need to get that man better weapons. And I don't think what they have, even though it's fine, if you're going to rely on Christian McCaffrey, he already has a calf strain. And I have a take that is not I hate wishing on injuries, but a part of me, are you going to rely on a full healthy season from Christian McCaffrey this year? Again, I just don't know if that's realistic with his workload. I don't know. In his history, I don't think so.
Because what does that offense look like if you lose Aiyuk and Christian McCaffrey even for 2-3 games? Like, you talk about the NFC West, that's going to be a really good division. Even the Arizona Cardinals made big moves this year. It's going to be a much more competitive division. The Seattle Seahawks, I don't think there'll be anything crazy, but their defense is legit and they have playmakers all around offensively. Like, if they lose Christian McCaffrey for a game or two, like, that's going to be huge for them, because you saw what they were when they went into Cleveland and they looked all right. Like, Jake Moody missed the kick, but you saw just the identity of that team. They couldn't find it when there was no Trent Williams, when there's no Deebo Samuel. So if they lose Brandon Aiyuk and Christian McCaffrey, this team's definitely going to take a huge step back.
Yeah, agreed. I see Coach Walk's comment. If the Steelers get them, they'll have a deep receiver room. Who do the Steelers have currently? I mean, they have George Pickens.
And then they'll have Brandon Aiyuk. They did plan on having Roman Wilson.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I'm trying to think. They have Kelvin Austin, who I actually really like. He was a rookie out of Memphis last year that can absolutely fucking fly. And I'm sure they have a couple other guys that I'm not thinking of. But, I mean, compared to what they have, if you're in the AFC North, they definitely, they have the worst quarterback situation in that division. Get all the playmakers you can. And Brandon Aiyuk, Deontay Johnson was nice for them. And Brandon Aiyuk's a better version of Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson had a season where he didn't have a single touchdown. And I get that the quarterback play wasn't good, but Brandon Aiyuk, we just talked about it, on 75 catches had 1,400 yards. And now you can have him going under George Pickens, and Pat Freiermuth is there as well. So it's a great move for the Steelers.
Yeah, I just looked up the depth chart. They have Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, like you said, Roman Wilson, and then Quez Watkins would be the only wide receivers that you would. So not very good wide receivers outside of them. But did they pay George Pickens already, or does he still need to get paid?
He's in his third year. So he's J-Mo's year.
That's a weird.
I mean, and they're not paying their quarterbacks anything, so
that is true. But
and Russell,
they're gonna be giving 2 wide receivers the bag before they pay a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that's so they can at least afford it, and I guess there is somewhat of a need for it, but. All right, I want to get into speaking of the doc. He posted his takeaways from training camp because he was there at the joint practice. I want to go through some of the things he wrote here and talked about and give our thoughts. So I'll put that up. The first thing he wrote as a takeaway, and you can check this out, si.com/NFL/Lions. It's Sports Illustrated or Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated. So please go give it a read. But the first thing he mentions is the Lions' new reputation. All right. And he writes here, it was clear from the start that the Giants remembered their showing against the Lions in joint practices last year, which I actually forgot they did face the Giants last year until yesterday when we brought it up. He writes, Detroit is viewed as a Super Bowl contender, which resonated with the Giants. As a result, both teams were unwilling to give an inch when they began team reps. The Lions are wearing a target as last year's NFC runner-up, and the Giants were determined to show their mettle. This led to two very competitive, chippy joint practices. So, and the second thing he writes here is just, no pun intended, but the secondary is still in work, still a work in progress. And he put how his biggest takeaway was the Lions secondary still has room for improvement. Rookie Terrion Arnold and Carlton Davis had their moments, but rookie Malik Neighbors had a field day and had only one incompletion on passes thrown in his direction. So,
damn.
Yeah,
It led to a fight.
Yeah, and then they got to a fight. So, he even writes like the Giants offense controlled 7-on-7 work as I can't believe I'm reading this, as Daniel Jones diced up the Lions secondary. I mean, okay, well,
Danny Dimes.
I want to and we said this yesterday, I'm not going to overreact. Last year, I brought it up. Jeremy Reisman said that when he went to joint practice last year, he said the run defense did not look good. What happened, ladies and gentlemen? They had one of the best run defenses in the league. So I don't want to sound like I'm in denial or I'm coping, but I'm not going to freak out yet with this secondary. I'm going to give it they got new faces. You have a rookie starting. Carlton Davis, I think we know what he is. I just think it was a little bit of a shock. You're playing, and Malik Neighbors is so good, and he's different. He's a different type of wide receiver than what they have and what they've been facing. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here, fellas. But the fact that one of the takeaways was the secondary needs work, or at least needs more time to develop. I trust the doc, and a lot of people were talking about it.
Like you said, it's still early. It's a totally revamped secondary. Like, I mean, if this was a couple weeks in, I would be panicking if they're still getting cooked, but I don't think that'll be the case. Like you said, there's a bunch of new faces. I still think there's some things to work out in that secondary. So, I mean, it does suck because the last thing you want to hear is you're getting cooked by Daniel Jones, who is absolutely terrible at passing, and the Giants have been terrible in the pass game in general. But I still think it's very early on. Like you noted, there is a rookie Terrion out there, but it's definitely not a comforting feeling when you're hearing that you're getting cooked by the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
I literally could not care less about this. Like, it's headlines. Like, I get that it's informative to know what's going on there, but I've seen Carlton Davis play football for numerous years. I've seen him win a Super Bowl, in fact. Kirby Joseph, I've seen him on this team. I saw what Brian Branch did last year. I saw what Amik Robertson did last year in Vegas. We haven't seen what Terrion Arnold has, but Terrion Arnold, if you watch him at Alabama, there's a lot to be excited about. And when you look at the moves that they made alongside on that defensive line, the Lions had, in my opinion, I know the Commanders statistically were worse, but the Lions had the worst secondary last year. They are going to improve by default just because the talent they have walking onto the field. And this was the first one-on-one scenario they've been in against a different team. And secondary chemistry is so important when you're in coverage just because everything's moving so fast. You have to trust the corner in front of you, the safety behind you. There's so many moving parts. So I'm not worried about this at all. I guarantee you this is going to be a top half of the league secondary at the floor.
John writes about the defensive line. We talked about it yesterday with Levi playing pretty well, and the defensive line playing a lot better yesterday. And again, we're just reporting news, reacting to it. We're not saying the defensive line is one day they're bad, one day they're back. Like, we're not overreacting to everything. But I did find this very interesting what John wrote. He kind of discussed how the battles between the Lions defensive line and the Giants defensive line was interesting. I mean, you had Andrew Thomas matched up with Davenport, which, it's a good test for Davenport. Mm-hmm. All right, going up against Andrew Thomas. You had Hutchinson matching up with I don't even know how to say this name.
Elmore? I don't know.
Yeah, that was my guess. But you get the point. But he writes here too. Taylor Decker matched up with Brian Burns. Panay squared off with Thibodeau, and then he said that Yeah, and he said that each side had their share of wins, with the slight edge going to the Giants. Decker did a nice job shutting down a spin move attempt by Burns, while Sewell kept Thibodeau out of the backfield. So that's good work for them. He also writes how the backup quarterback position it's still undecided. All right, so
there's hope, Jeff.
You know what, boys, we're hanging on. All right, we're hanging on by a thread here. All right, we're hanging on by a thread. He writes that Thursday's preseason game will be intriguing and that we will see both Nate Sudfeld and Hendon Hooker get plenty of reps, while Goff is expected to sit out. Sudfeld took the second-team offense on Monday, while Hooker was in charge on Tuesday. Sudfeld had a pass picked off on Monday. Okay. Well, Hooker missed a pre-snap check that drew the I don't even see. This is
the ire.
The ire.
Yeah, that's just Doc cooking. That's some Doc season right there.
Bag. We're not. What are we doing? Of Ben Johnson on Tuesday, the real clarity in the back of Jock on Thursday when both players get their chance to run the offense. So Thursday, we're going to have our answer. I'm excited because preseason, yeah, football's back, but the preseason is meant for these types of storylines. Like, are we talking about the backup quarterback? Yeah, it's August, but that's what tomorrow's going to prove. Is if Hendon Hooker stinks, and not saying that's the only game that's going to decide that, but at least you'll get an actual game to see him go against 2s and 3s. Rather than just seeing training camp and, in what John's been reporting, which is Hendon Hooker has not looked very good. So, and that's what most people are reporting.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen a report elsewhere saying otherwise, Jeff.
I've been digging. I have not found it.
Yeah, I'm sure you would have brought it up. It would have been the first topic brought up on the show this week if you would have.
Outside of Hendon, what are you looking forward to tomorrow? Like, is there a certain player you're looking out for? Obviously, Jeff, you're probably only watching for Hendon Hooker, but and what about you, Lucas?
Fountain for sure. I think if Fountain goes out there and balls out, there's a real chance he's the X of this team. Not the number one, but as far as the guy that you're going to line up at the X spot in the depth chart first, I think he's got a lot to gain. And if he goes out there, just even 3 catches, 30 yards, that's fine. But just seeing how he looks, the eye test, that's what I'm really excited to see. Rakestraw too, like Coach Walk just said. Rakestraw, if he goes out there and hits the Cole Beasley, Brian Branch type of hit, it's going to be a lot of noise about him moving on throughout the rest of the season.
I got 2 players on defense. One, for narrative purposes. One of those players, Matthew Betts. I need to see Matthew. I got to see it. I got to see it. I want to see it. I just want to see Matthew Betts out there. I want to see what he has to bring to the
Levi
table.
O, could I interest you?
You could interest me in Levi O.
Okay.
That. I will also say Stephen Gilmore, because I want to see Stephen Gilmore out there making some plays. Had a pretty good preseason last year, and he's someone that's kind of been slept on. And now with Emmanuel Mosley going out, you might need a guy like that depending on injuries. So Stephen Gilmore in the secondary, I'm excited for, even though his role might be just insignificant all year, probably. But Matthew Betts for me and Booner's pizza bet, whether he'll make the roster or not.
Do you think he'll be out there? Because sometimes those guys at the bottom of the depth chart don't make it out there on the first preseason game. Do you think we'll see Matthew Betts?
Which one, Betts or Steven?
Betts.
They gotta.
Technically.
You gotta see the Betts. You gotta see Maddie. You gotta see Maddie. You gotta see the he's the
Jeff
talking.
just wants to see it so he can put the narrative down after one game. One tiny little sample size. Jeff's just gonna cut it off. That's why he wants to see it.
Hey, you're learning. Hey, Mike, you know how it goes. I'm gonna judge it off one game, and it can't change my mind. So if he's
narrative.
Yep, that's how it is. And I see Coach saying he won't play. They won't start Betts. They'll save him for the season.
Got to keep him healthy. He's a player you signed for December. That's a guy
who don't play stars in the preseason.
When you're in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes and you need somebody just absolutely torching the left tackle off the edge, making Mahomes uncomfortable, you bring in Matthew Betts, the man from British Columbia, 29 years old.
I have to see if he can at least be a contributor. I mean, I'm not expecting what he did for the CFL, but is the guy good?
Can he hold his own? Can he hold his own?
Can he hold his own? Because I know Booner brought up that, Dan Campbell kind of came out and was like, maybe we're throwing too much at him. Maybe he's overwhelmed. And I'm like, well, that's not
Matthew
really.
Betts overwhelmed?
Yeah, I don't know. So I want to see Matthew Betts. I mean, I guess people were suggesting other things too. 935 says Wingo and Vaki. You think Vaki will be out there? I think, yeah.
I would imagine so. Ooh, Maurice Alexander. if he makes another kick return touchdown this year and they don't keep him on the roster, I'll just, obviously it's Brad Holmes, trust in Holmes, but I'll just be disappointed for my own sake. I think it'd be really fun watching Alexander return kicks for the team in the regular season.
I'm kind of hyped to see the depth like in the secondary anyways. I mean, obviously we won't see the starters, our number ones out there probably, but I mean, just the guys behind them, just seeing how the depth itself is. I mean, that's just going to be interesting in itself.
Trying to think of any other ones. Antoine Green is a guy that I think you really got to watch because I think him and Caden Davis are closer than people probably expect. So if Caden Davis makes a couple of plays and Antoine Green, I mean, we act like he's an automatic lock to make the team, but think about how many times you hear about teams letting go of their 7th-round picks. Like, it's very common. 7th-round picks from this year draft will be released by the team that drafted him this year. So if Antoine Green isn't able to produce like how the Lions want him to, I think he definitely can be on that fringe spot. If Caden Davis makes plays, at least.
Yeah. No, I think those are all fair. I mean, I see Ryan Terrion probably plays. Do you think he does?
I would hope so. Because to that point, like the reason you wouldn't want to play players is injury in the preseason. But Terrion Arnold, I think he needs experience going into the regular season, and knock on wood, injury. Like, you have depth there at corner.
I don't hate that. If he plays, I won't be upset. It is, but because I think for him, you could argue, even though he's a starter, he's a rookie. So that I think I would rather have Ennis play more, but I don't mind him playing.
I would just minimize it. If it's Terrion, a couple drives, that's it, and then you're gone. But I would definitely like to see Rakestraw out there for sure.
Rakestraw for sure, but Terrion's going to have to cover Puka and Cooper Kupp week 1. I would like to see him at least just be able to just get used to the NFL with real game speed. And I know it's preseason, but it's any rookie week 1's going to struggle. I think you got to set him up for success as much as possible, especially when you're going up with those receivers and Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. That's a lot to handle week 1.
Yeah, then I do get that.
True.
I guess joint practice is, it's nothing like being out there in a preseason. Even though it's preseason, it's against 2s and 3s. At least you're out there, like you said, game speed. So I don't hate that. Coach Walk says, Manu, will he play?
Jeff,
don't let him play out there.
Are we seeing no gut out in the field?
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of pancakes. I'll tell you that. Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Let Manu get loose. Put him in motion. Just run the ball. Run the ball behind. Give Vaki the ball behind Manu.
That's another one I think would be interesting to watch too. Josh Pascal, if he's in there with the 2s, I would expect him to dominate. Like if Julian Okwara was able to dominate a preseason game last year against the New York Giants, Josh Pascal, it's your time. It's your time. Let's make some noise in the preseason.
Our local Rams fan chimes in.
Terrion, I really don't think. I think there's a chance that he could hold his own situationally. But there's no way that Terrion goes out there, and I couldn't think of one rookie corner in week 1 ever that's gonna be able to stop either Cooper Kupp or Puka week 1. Like even Sauce, he would struggle week 1. Patrick Surtain, like any NFL corner, that's just because Cooper Kupp's just one of those receivers that's so savvy. Like it doesn't matter how, like he's just gonna find a way to get open. He's not the fastest, he's not the quickest, but he's just good. He's very fucking good.
Yeah, I think the worst type of receiver for a rookie corner to guard is a very technically sound, extremely good route runner. Like that's got to be a nightmare week 1. Yeah. Like your first NFL game, and this dude already is like 2-3 steps ahead of you. I mean, like
one misstep. And then you're like, how? Because it's not like he's not faster than Terrion. He's not stronger than Terrion. But one misstep by Terrion Arnold is going to be a 20-yard gain.
he's being spun around, and he's 5-10 yards open already.
Because Cooper Kupp, after the catch, too, very underrated.
He's a problem, yeah. Puka, too. Puka's like an exact replica. Like, he is just like the
Which
same.
Is stronger.
And no matter what, Stafford's going to find the way to get his guys the balls. Like, he force feeds his guys. He makes sure, the Puka, Cooper Kupp, they're going to get the ball. So
they'll be open, but Stafford might be throwing a pick or two. Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, lurking.
Yeah.
Stafford does better than anybody in the NFL right now besides Josh Allen is throw picks.
Stafford will still have a smooth 300 probably no matter what.
Yeah,
but we get the win. That's all we care about.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Yeah, that's Terrion.
That Padford game.
Yeah.
Don't start this.
Get all riled up.
Yeah, we'll see. I think Terran will. I'm with you. He'll hold his. I think he'll hold his own. If you can hold Cooper Kupp to, 5
40.
catches for 50 yards, or he did fine. 5 for 60, 5 for 50, whatever. I mean, as long as Cooper Kupp is not getting like 8 for 97 or 8 for 120, that's probably worst case scenario.
Let Tyler Higbee and Demarcus Robinson eat. That's what they got to let happen.
Yeah.
Let those boys go off.
Yeah. I'm with you there. But we shall see here. We're going to get into our power rankings because that's been coming out, preseason power rankings. We have our own power rankings, and we'll get to Booners when he gets here. But we're going to go through our power rankings. Each of us have our own top 10 lists. It's not all 32 teams, but it's a little aggressive. But we're going to go through at least the teams that we do have, our top 10 teams. And then we also have done this. We did it weeks ago. It might have been months ago, 2 months ago. It was right after the draft we did it. So now we're going to do preseason power rankings now that everything's kind of happened. Now we're closer to the season, so these are going to be more accurate. And then we'll do our probably our before the season power rankings again, but at least these are preseason. So we'll start, Lucas. I'm going to put yours up first. All right. So we're going to go through yours.
Wait. No, put me up first, Jeff.
Okay. All right. I'll put yours up here. We'll go through Gentry's. Let me see here. All right. We got Gentry's up, and all right. All right, Gentry, talk to me. We see your power rankings.
All right. Number 1, I obviously, or should I go 10 to 1 or 1 to 10?
However you feel, whatever is best for you.
Number 1, I will go the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, they win the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes, I still think is going to have his best year of yet. So I don't think the Chiefs are going anywhere. I think they will be number 1 in these power rankings for years to come. It doesn't matter. Patrick Mahomes will always have them atop of this list. I strongly believe that. Number 2, the 49ers. Even though I still think the Lions are going to edge them this year, the 49ers still deserve this spot. Who knows how the Aiyuk trade will affect this team, but they still have one of the best defenses in the league. Still have Kyle Shanahan. They still have some pieces on offense. Number 3, the Detroit Lions. I don't need to explain them. Number 4, I had the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson. I still think they have some pieces on defense, even though they lost Patrick Queen. They still have some guys back there, and I still think Lamar, being the MVP caliber quarterback he'll always have them in this top 5 or sniffing around it. Number 5, I have C.J. Stroud in the Houston Texans. I think Stroud's going to have a big year. Obviously, last year had an MVP-esque season. That offense added even more weapons. They added weapons on the defense, too, to the defensive line, secondary, everything. So I still think the Texans will be in this top 5. And number 6, I have the Eagles. I think Jalen Hurts and that team find a bounce back from the way they ended last year. If you remember, they were very good for the beginning of the year. Second half of the season wasn't so well. Who knows if it was coaching? Kind of the locker room vibes obviously weren't good. But they do have the players. They bring in Saquon Barkley. You expect the Georgia boys on the defensive line to take another step forward. And then number 8, I have Green Bay and Jordan Love. I still think that team will continue to get better offensively. They obviously had Josh Jacobs, kind of changes their run game. They still have the 3 great wide receivers, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, 2 great tight ends. So I think they'll be really good offensively with another year under Jordan Love. And then their defense obviously added some pieces as well. Number 9, the Los Angeles Rams, Matthew Stafford. For every reason we just talked about with the Rams and when we were trolling Etienne, I think their offense is going to be sound. Even though they did lose Aaron Donald, they still went out and addressed their defensive line, and they still do have a good secondary. So I'm confident that Rams defense will still be up there. And then number 10, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. I think with Joe Burrow staying healthy, if he does stay healthy, I think this team will be contending in the AFC.
Hey, I mean, 49ers over the Lions. And you know what? I'm going to get Boone in here in a second. We'll get Boone's thoughts on that as well. Mike, what made you decide that? All right, 49ers over the Lions. They're not giving the Lions that 2 spot.
I mean, we haven't beat them yet. I mean, we should have beat them, but we didn't. They won the NFC.
It's fair. That's fair.
Fair
Disagree,
point.
but it's
Fair
fair.
point.
It's fair. All right, let's bring in Boone, and then we'll go through everyone's here, and then we'll have a little discussion here. So please welcome to the show, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Booner. Booner.
Boone.
Don't like what I was coming into there. Don't enjoy that, Gentry. Don't enjoy. Hey, I don't enjoy what was happening there. Don't enjoy it at all.
I don't enjoy it.
I come into a hostile environment right away. I'm ready to. I'll get Kirby on you, Gentry. Don't worry.
Hey. All
What's
right.
up,
Well,
fellas?
I
How are
still
we
think
doing?
top 3 is fair, Boone. You know, I can't be too biased. Chiefs are obviously number 1 once we beat the 49ers this year, and I do think we will beat the 49ers. But until then, I still have the 49ers above them.
all right. Well,
Can't wait to roll it.
I'll put mine up, and we'll see how ours compare.
Hey, love you all. Love the people. Glad to be back.
Hell yeah.
Will not
Boone.
be late
Hey,
tomorrow. It was just
welcome.
yesterday and today.
Welcome back, Boone. All right, let's
Thank
get. Here's my top 10. All right, let me get rid of this so we don't block Lucas. All right, real quick. All right, preseason NFL Power Rankings top 10. I have at 10 the Green Bay Packers. All right, Green Bay Packers in my top 10. I just simply think the teams in front of them are better, and I think with their youth and with Jordan Love, still have to see it. Now we had a good close of the year. Some question marks with the Green Bay Packers, and I don't really love the Josh Jacobs signing, so I'm still going to keep them at 10. At number 9, I have the New York Jets. And I'm going to be honest, you guys have heard me. Remember, even on our road trip to Nashville, I had some concerns about the New York Jets, just because so much really relies on Aaron Rodgers being healthy. But if he is, which I expect him to be, I think they're going to be very good. So I have them at 9. They're on my list. At 8, I have the Los Angeles Rams. I really like the Rams. I know I might be probably higher on with them than most people on top 10 lists. I know people have them in the teens. I have them at 8 because I like how the Rams are constructed. I think who they drafted, they crushed their draft, and upgrading their offensive line. They still have weapons, so they still have Kyron Williams. They're going to run the ball effectively. So I'm putting them at 8. At number 7, I have the Houston Texans. For obvious reasons, I think they deserve to be in the top 10. I have them behind the Cincinnati Bengals at 6 because even though the Texans have a better roster, I have more faith in Joe Burrow because of what I've seen. A CJ Stroud, now a second-year player. Love CJ, but again, I'm going to give that nod to the Bengals because if they matched up with T. Higgins still there and who they have, although question marks at running back, I would still lean Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor at this point. It's only a spot, but that's where I'm at currently. And number 5, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. I almost put them over the Baltimore Ravens, but I'm going to stick with them at 5. Because I just think with the Eagles, how they ended last year with the uncertainty of Nick Sirianni's future, and then they get new coordinators on both sides of the ball. A lot of things kind of got to go right, and they have enough talent to do so. I think they're top 5, but I'm going to give the nod to the Ravens because of the consistency they have. And they have a great roster, even with the loss of Patrick Queen. They still have good defensive players, and good offensive players. So I'm gonna keep the Ravens with Mark Andrews healthy. The San Francisco 49ers at 3. And this is me factoring in the loss of Brandon Aiyuk. I've said it before, and I'll say it right now. I think it matters. So I have them at 3 behind the Detroit Lions. I think the Detroit Lions are the second best team in the NFL right now before the season, as they should be, given the amount of talent they have on both sides of the ball and the amount of young players they have. And with Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, all that included. I'm going to keep the Chiefs at 1, and Mike laid it out perfectly. They have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Leave it there. I mean, and again, the defense they have is still very good. They upgraded their roster. So I'm going to keep the Chiefs at 1 until proven otherwise. But I do think the Lions have gotten the 49ers in terms of where they should be ranked, especially if they lose Brandon Aiyuk. But that is my top 10.
The only thing, I think you're a little high on the Rams, but I know just how you are with McVay and just the Rams in general. You got a little crush on them, but that's okay. We all have those teams that we just really enjoy watching. And I think the Rams, they're going to be legit, but I just think offensively, they're going to be the same. Like, I don't think they're going to take a huge jump. I don't think they're going to take a step back. I still think they're going to be a really good offense. But defensively, losing Aaron Donald, losing Raheem Morris, I do think they had a good draft defensively, but that defense is definitely going to take some time to click. And like we talked about in the NFC West, they're still going to be a good team. They're going to be making the playoffs. I just said I could see a situation where they could potentially win the NFC West. I don't think it's a guarantee, but I can see it happening. I just don't know if I put them at 8 compared to I know there's a lot to see out of Jordan Love, but just the Packers in general with all the weapons they have, how much they improved defensively. I know you haven't seen it yet, but you've seen the LA Rams, and the LA Rams have had Aaron Donald for so long that defense is going to take a hit. But that would be the one thing that I'm and it's nitpicky. Otherwise than that, I really don't hate this. I would probably put the Eagles over the Ravens. That's what I did in mine. I know it's giving away a little bit, but it's not that much of a giveaway. But yeah, this is fine to me.
We'll say the many people ask Jeff, and I promise this is real. This isn't exaggerating. got, people know we're doing the power rankings. Jeff, are you putting in the Chicago Bears? And I'm like, guys,
Yeah, where do they fit?
The Chicago Bears are not in the top 10. They are not in the top 10. I can confirm here live on Crunch Time. They are not top 10, despite my my love for Caleb Williams. No, I'm going to be realistic here. They are not top 10. But I don't think that's unfair, Lucas. I don't. If you're a little lower on the Rams than I am, that's fine. I would like the Rams and Jets to me. I don't mind if you wanted to take the Jets. I think the Rams would beat the Packers if they matched up. Let's just say week 1 they were matched up. I would pick the Rams personally.
Really?
Yes,
I can't be like, oh, that's a terrible. Like, I can't hate you for it. I would probably take the Packers, but the spread would probably be like 1.5.
It would almost be a pick'em game. Depending, really all there would be is whoever's the home team would probably be the favorite.
Yeah.
Like if you're playing in Green Bay, they're probably the favorites, and if you're playing in Los Angeles, the Rams are probably favored by 1.5.
But that was my line of thinking on that, essentially. So it's not.
I was kind of surprised you put Cincy at 6, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I put him there and I let it simmer. I don't love it as much as I did earlier. That's
fair.
I'm going to be honest. Hey, Mike, I'm going to keep it honest with you. I don't love it as much as I did earlier, but if I was going to move them, I would probably swap them with the Texans and keep them in that like Rams, Jets, Packers tier. I wouldn't move them like a lot. I still like the Bengals personally.
I mean, I still think they'll be top tier offense if Joe Burrow stays healthy. My concern is just the defense, but I had him on 10. So like Lucas said, it's kind of nitpicky, but I'm just surprised that you had him that low.
I think with the Bengals with Zach Taylor and like Joe Burrow, you're going to be one of the best teams in the NFL. Yeah. I look at these teams in the NFL. If you have a top 5 quarterback, you're probably going to be you're easily in the top 10. I don't remember where I had the Bengals, but I don't know I don't know. I can't remember. Actually, I do remember now.
So I'm gonna still rock with Cincy, but I understand these guys. I don't think what you said, guys, is fair. It's not worth me yelling at you about and disagreeing. I think that's very fair.
You better watch out.
Very fair. Well, let's see if Booner's list is fair. All right, let's put up Booner's list. Let's see what you got here. This is Booner's top 10 before the season.
It's a beautiful list, boys. That's a beautiful list.
The Bills
number 1.
All right. Let's start at number 10 here. We'll work backwards here, boys. Hold on. Let me get a
lead from the front, Booner.
Number 10, the Los Angeles Rams. Jeff, I get, like, I'm with you a little bit. Like, for me, there's a group of teams from 7 to 12 or 7 to 11 where it's like these are like that's the tier of teams. Like when we did our tier list, like those were the teams where it's like they're playoff lock teams. They're going to be in the playoffs. It's just they're just not those elite teams yet. That's where I have the Rams. And I guess you could argue like with Sean McVay and Stafford and the weapons they have and their defense is getting built up. You could argue you could put them higher. But for me, it's just like they're probably going to like maybe last year they're going to do what they did. That's just kind of my season for the Los Angeles Rams. Klotz, I heard earlier you said that they could win the division if Brandon Aiyuk leaves. I still think the 49ers probably win that division. I don't think there's a chance the Rams compete with them. That's just me, though. Number 9, this is where things get a little disrespectful from all of you guys because obviously I still have to wait to see Klotz's list. I think, and I'm just going to be honest here, if I didn't have this whole thing against the Bills, like let's take the whole storyline behind Booner and the Buffalo Bills. Let's take that away. Chat, everyone watching, everyone listening to me right now that knows all Booner and his Bills and Josh Allen. Take all of that away. We might be the only show in the world that has guys that aren't putting the Buffalo Bills in the top 10 of their power rankings. Literally the only show. I went through today because I'm like, I can't be the only one just sitting here being like, the Bills are still have Josh Allen, right? Like Josh Allen's not hurt all year, right? No, they still have Josh Allen, right? And then I go through I went through 100 power rankings for this offseason. I couldn't find one that didn't have the Buffalo Bills in the top 10. Ari Mayrov had the Buffalo Bills at 5. Like, we're like, it baffles me that I think you guys just use me as an excuse to put the Bills out. It's crazy. Why don't we put a little respect on Josh Allen's name? If you're going to put the Bengals in your top 10, put Josh Allen and the Bills in your top 10. All right, we'll move on from that. Number 8, the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow, top 5 quarterback. If you have a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, you can throw a team together and you're going to go out there and win 10 games. It's a quarterback league, and if you have an elite quarterback, you're going to go win 10 games plus. that's the Bengals. No question, right? Anyone have problems with that?
No.
Jeff?
With your point about what
8 and 9.
top 5
8
quarterback.
8 and 9. Yeah.
If you have a top 5 quarterback, you're going to win 10 games. No, not always guaranteed. You need a good roster with them.
You just need a decent roster. Yeah, I mean, now if you want to get to 12, 13, 14 and talk about Super Bowl, that's a little different, but still one of the best teams in football, the Cincinnati Bengals. We can have that discussion later too. Number 7, the Green Bay Packers. I think like I get Jeff a little bit with the Rams Packers things. Like you think that if they played the Rams, I'm just high. Like the Packers roster as a whole is actually really good. Like that defense, they've built up a pretty good defense. Matt LaFleur, they have a great football coach there. Obviously Jordan Love. I think for me, I still want to see a little bit more. But I think the Packers, you can make that argument that they're a top 7 team here in the NFL. Number 6, the Philadelphia Eagles. I understand they did what they did last year, and they crumbled. They crumbled. Shout out Nick Sirianni for being an absolute dog and going into a press conference this week and saying, all of that was on me. Very first meeting, he said he walked into Philadelphia, the building, and he said, boys, that was all on me. Let's move on. Now let's go be absolute dogs. Let's go win the division. That was exactly what he did. I respect Nick Sirianni for that. Not a lot of coaches can do that. Matt Patricia. Number 5, the Houston Texans. Obviously, they have an MVP candidate, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and they have this is where, Jeff, this is where you're talking about, well, the roster. They have a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, but they also have a top 5 roster in the NFL. Like they have an elite, a very, very good roster. They did a good job this offseason, and they've drafted so well. So the Texans, number 5, I think that's a no-brainer. Number 4, you could switch this. You can go 4 or 5, Ravens, Texans, whatever you want to do. I just think with Lamar, they added Derrick Henry. That defense, by golly, the defense that the Ravens have is always a beautiful, beautiful sight to watch. Now you just add one of the best running backs in the entire NFL to this offense, and John Harbaugh. Like they're going to be a top 5 team for the whole season. I still don't think they probably lose in the first round or lose in the second round of the playoffs. Top 5 team though. Gentry, this is where me and you have a nice little. This is where I start cutting in a little bit here. All right, the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions at number 2. With the Brandon Aiyuk situation, fellas, and this is just a fact. If you know football, if you watch the NFL, if you know what you're doing, the Detroit Lions now have officially, Brandon Aiyuk, whatever the situation is going on, he is no longer a San Francisco 49er. Breaking news. I'm saying it here. Brandon Aiyuk is gone. No longer a San Francisco 49er. He leaves. The Detroit Lions are now the best team in the entire NFC now. The entire NFC. They are now the number 1 team in the NFC. No questions, nothing asked. They've lost a bunch on their defensive line. Yeah, they might have added some, but they've lost a bunch of guys. Guys are coming off injuries. They're losing their number 1 wide receiver. I don't care if you have Christian McCaffrey. Like he was great that he was healthy last year. How healthy will he stay this year? I don't care who Brock Purdy is. The Detroit Lions have the best roster in the NFC. The Detroit Lions are now the number 1 team in the NFC, and they are the team to beat to go get the number 1 seed. They are now the front runners in the NFC. There is no question behind it. The San Francisco 49ers, fellas, someone just tell me this. What was it? 2018 to 2024? Was that when Kyle Shanahan took over? 2019?
Yep, roughly around there. Yep.
2019 to 2024. Put it on a gravestone. That was their Super Bowl run. That was their window. Woo-hoo. Brandon Aiyuk leaves. San Francisco 49ers window is gone. Detroit Lions window is in. Detroit Lions now will run the NFC and be the best team in the NFC for the next 4 to 5 years, just like the San Francisco 49ers were the last few years. That is what it is now. Gentry, I get. They lost to them. They did new season, new team, new everything. Now you look at it and you go, hey, who's the better football team and whose trajectory is like this and whose is like that? Detroit Lions all the way up. As Dan Campbell, the Detroit Lions are now the number 1 team in the NFC. The only team better than them right now in the NFL, and it's only because they've gone back-to-back, is the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's only because they have Patrick Mahomes, and they've gone back-to-back. And they've reloaded everyone.
Yeah, I mean, they're absolutely.
I do agree. I already said that I think the Lions will take the 49ers spot, but I don't think the 49ers are just going straight downhill because they lost Brandon Aiyuk. I don't believe that one bit. I still think they'll be okay. They will find another wide receiver, or they'll have one of their guys stepped up. Obviously, they're comfortable enough to give up a guy like Brandon Aiyuk. They must have something in the works. They're not just going straight downhill. They're going to be a shit team in the NFC because they lost Brandon Aiyuk.
I'll tell you what, I'm not saying they're going to be a bad team in the NFC, but they ran the NFC for the last 5 years. They were the ones that every year everyone's like, oh, the 49ers, the 49ers, the 49ers, the Niners, the Niners. Guess what? That's the Lions now for the next 5 years. The Niners, they have fumbled a bag. They don't even have their left tackle at training camp right now. They don't know what they're doing. They're in an absolute
obviously
blender.
Letting go of Brandon Aiyuk will probably bring that guy back to training camp.
If they knew they were letting go of Brandon Aiyuk, they would have got the left tackle deal done a week ago if they knew. So like
Maybe they were trying to work them both out, Boone. They give up one for the other.
Don't know what they're doing. If they were, if they knew that Brandon Aiyuk was such a big deal, like they wouldn't have been trying to work out this deal. They would have moved on and said, we can go with Ricky Pearsall. Guess what? He's hurt already. Like this is the 49ers and their downfall. And you know what? You know who actually told me this and whispered that in my ear? Is George Kittle. George Kittle. Because George Kittle on the wide receivers show, and you guys can go watch his back. There was a clip of him at the beginning of the year, and he said, hey, this is the year, boys. Like, we have to do it this year. Like, he basically said in that show, this is the end of our window. This is our window. Everything's come together for this. We have Aiyuk. Like, after this year, guys are going to want contracts. Guys are going to want out. Things are going to look different. Like, this is it for the 49ers. George Kittle said it. It's done for them. Brandon Aiyuk's gone. They are done. Left, like, it's over. The Lions have now arrived. The Detroit Lions have arrived. They are here, and they're going nowhere, boys. The Booner path, 2024. San Francisco 49ers, 2017 to 2024. Put it on a shirt with the RIP and its gravestone.
You could put it on a shirt, Boone.
That,
I like the idea.
It's like a hell of a sales pitch. You know what? I had them too as well. I don't, but to what Mike was saying, I don't think they take an absolute nosedive. I just think the edge goes to the Lions. That's where I would go. I think they're still going to win, 11, 12 games. But the Lions are the better team. I'll agree with that, Boone.
Let's make this. They're not going to do a nosedive. They're still going to be competing. Like, we're still going to have to play them in the playoffs. I think they just flop spots.
Yeah,
like,
I'm with you.
The 49ers did the last 4 or 5 years, constantly in the championship game, constantly in the Super Bowl. That's now the Lions, and the Lions are the team to beat in the NFC now. That is who the Detroit Lions are. They are now the number 2 team in the NFL and the number 1 team in the NFC.
I like it, Boone.
Now I'm buzzing over here. I don't know what to do. I was going to go get an energy drink.
That was a hell of a way to return to the show, Boone.
Yeah,
that was late, but you didn't go anywhere. You were right here the whole time. You were right here the whole time. You always arrive.
Hey, well, you made it just in time for Klotzy to defend the Colts, who are on this damn list.
I'm excited to see what you say about this. I'll go with the Colts last. Kansas City Chiefs, back-to-back. They are absolutely loaded at the receiver position again with Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce is going to even benefit from the receiving core even more than people expect, in my opinion. And number 2, even if Brandon Aiyuk was still with the San Francisco 49ers, with all the turmoil they're having this offseason, I would have put the Detroit Lions ahead of them still. But the fact that they did lose Brandon Aiyuk and Booner just cooked about it for the last 2 minutes, I don't need to anymore. Detroit Lions over the San Francisco 49ers. And a team that I think it's surprising to see 3 NFC teams in the top 5, in my opinion. But the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, are going to be right back to where they were when they had Nick Sirianni as their offensive coordinator. Not Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen. I can't believe I'm forgetting that, but Shane Steichen as their OC. And then you got Vic Fangio on the defensive side. Their defense is going to improve drastically. So that's why I have them over the Baltimore Ravens, because, Jeff, you brought it up, Patrick Queen. I do think that's going to be a big loss for them, even though their defense is going to be fine. When you think about the Philadelphia Eagles adding Devin White, who I really like and people like to throw shade at a lot of times, I still think he's a damn good linebacker. Them adding him, I think, is a huge piece. And the Bengals at 6, I was really having a hard time putting them behind the Ravens, but I do think the Bengals, they're going to have a little bit of growing to do just because they did lose Joe Mixon, and defensively they're going to be looking a little bit different losing DJ Reader, but that's still a damn good football team. And the New York Jets could easily be inside this top 5. The New York Jets have, in my opinion, probably a top 4 roster in the whole NFL. It's just you're relying on Aaron Rodgers to stay healthy. I think adding Tyron Smith is a piece that people keep sleeping on. The New York Jets are going to probably be winning the AFC East, in my opinion, if everything stays healthy for them. Houston Texans at 8. I get it might be a little low, but I still think we have to see this whole team gel. This is going to be a very good football team. But I think that people are putting the Texans instantly in the top 5. And we've seen teams like the Ravens, the Bengals dominate this league consistently. The Houston Texans still have to prove that. They're going to be a great team, but I could see them having some struggles early on chemistry-wise. CJ Stroud's always been able to feed multiple receivers, but I think when you have a personality like Stephon Diggs, I think that is going to throw some dilemma in there, but they're going to be a great football team. And I think it's the same situation for the Green Bay Packers, but they're a little bit younger. Adding a defensive coordinator, I think is going to be good for them, but their defense is still going to have a lot of gelling. And finally, fellas, I don't care what you have to say about it. The Indianapolis Colts are a top 10 team in the NFL. I'm open to questions for it, but in my opinion, I'm comparing, like, I was debating between the Colts, the Browns and the Rams. And I was like, all right, let's look back. And I'm looking at, like, oh yeah, the Colts and the Rams played last year. The Colts with Anthony Richardson in like week 3, went 11 for 24. No Jonathan Taylor. Michael Pittman got hurt in the game, and they lost by 7 in overtime. So when I look at that, and I look at all the pieces they brought in, they're returning 97% of their defensive snaps. That 3% is Leatu Latu, who they added off the edge. And they also got Ibukam back, who's going to be coming from injury. So front 7-wise, they're absolutely loaded. I don't think they're a team that has an elite defense, but they do not have a weakness in that defense. And when you have a run-first team with Shane Steichen as the head coach, with Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, and 5 legitimate wide receivers, I don't see how this team struggles to control the clock unless it's a team in the top 5. Like if you were to match them up against the Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson, a lot of turnovers. You do that against the Indianapolis Colts, they're going to take 4 or 5 minutes off the drive and take 3. Now you just wasted a whole drive, and they're just going to be doing that the whole time. I think even if Anthony Richardson gets hurt, you saw what Joe Flacco did in Cleveland, and it's a completely different dynamic, and he's got 5 legitimate wide receivers to spread the field and Jonathan Taylor to run up the middle. And I just love what Shane Steichen is doing. I think he's a top 10 coach in the NFL. I think he has arguably a top 12 roster, but I think what you look at this roster can do chemistry-wise, they haven't lost anything, and they've gained pieces. I love this team.
I swear, man.
That man said, "I love this team." Like it was like he's talking to a girl.
No.
That was crazy.
Like he's a part of the staff or something.
Yeah, I love this team so much.
I do.
Man.
But
I love you guys.
The Colts PR better send you a fucking Christmas card this year. I swear to God, you are doing miracles for this organization. I'll ask you, how in anyone's right mind can you say the Colts are better than the Rams? Simply put, I'll ask you, quarterback, Rams, wide receiver, Rams, head coach, Rams.
Head coach, Rams, exactly. But I think Shane Steichen, he's not Sean McVay level, but he's an elite head coach. Name me another position between wide receiver and quarterback the Rams are better at. Kyron Williams, great. Jonathan Taylor's better. Offensive line, they're better. Everything on the front 7, go look at the Rams front 7 compared to what it was with Aaron Donald. Like, it's all right. But then you look at the Colts front 7, it doesn't sniff it. It doesn't. I could maybe hear corner. Safety isn't close.
I do think
if you watch what he did last year, Julian Blackmon is a monster. He's in his 4th year as a contract year, but if you watch him, like, that's fine.
I do think it's crazy having the Colts over teams like the Rams, the Bills, like the Dolphins. Like, I just think it's like, let's just wait. Like that is a team like a Colts where it's like, we know what they can be, and again, they do have all the pieces. They have, Shane Steichen, like they have everything. I do think it's a little more to where it's like we do have to see something like Anthony Richardson's coming off an injury, who played 5 games. Like, I think he's going to be really, really good. But it's like you're putting him over a guy like, and this is like, again, let me take away the Josh Allen stuff. Like, let me just take that away. But like, go over a quarterback, like a top 5 quarterback like a Josh Allen, or a guy like Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. Like, that's where, to me, it's a little bit like, okay, I do want, like, I'm with the Klotzy. Like, I think the Colts are going to be good this year. It is one of those things, though, to where it's like you do need to see it first, because guys like Anthony Richardson, who played 5 games or 6 games in the NFL total and is coming off a major shoulder injury, and then a guy like, some of these young players on this team that they're just drafting, Latu, rookie, Donnie Mitchell,
they have
rookie.
DeForest Buckner, Quinny Pay, and
and every team in the NFL has a lot of good vets. Like, that's the thing. But like these rookies we're depending on, the rookies that are getting depended on, those are the guys who, like, that's going to make or break if they're top 10. Like, you can have they've had those players for the last 3 or 4 years.
What rookies are they truly depending on, though?
The biggest position of them all, Anthony Richardson.
He's not, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you see him, okay, but last year, like, if we're having a quarterback list, I completely agree with you. But that's why you look at this team. They won 9 fucking games and were a game out of the playoff with Gardner Minshew. and they had half a season with Jonathan Taylor, and they re-upped the offensive skill players. They improved their defensive line, which was already pretty damn good.
Everything you're saying is correct. Like, this is where it's like I agree with you.
Great head coach, great owner, great
dude,
GM.
Everything you're saying right now, you could keep it going. I agree with everything you're saying. It's just you can't until like there are teams in the NFL and players who have done it. Like they went to the playoffs last year. The Rams.
Oh,
did.
I thought
resume
yesterday. Resume didn't
the
matter.
Dolphins did. What are you talking about?
I thought we didn't like resume yesterday. Now you got to. If
I don't know what you're talking about yesterday.
It has to. Hey, I agree with you, Boone. You cannot base a power ranking off something like the Colts over. I would even give you the Bills. I'm gonna be honest. I'll give you the fucking Bills, even though I don't even. even though the Bills I think are not as good as Booner's going to. He says they are. Like the Colts, I think have more question marks than answers to me. Like
the Colts have more question marks. They're returning everybody. Name me besides Matt Milano and Josh Allen. Name me the upside that the Bills have over the Colts on paper. Just on paper. We're not even going to bring up the head coaches.
Well, I'll give you this. And this is where I think it should matter the most. This is why I have the Rams over them. Quarterback. I know what I'm getting out of Matthew Stafford. I know what I'm getting out of Josh Allen. Like, I don't know what I'm getting out of Anthony Richardson. I just don't. And that's probably where I'm more hesitant than you. Like, I just,
that's where I think it's like we're talking about power rankings and now.
Every year in the NFL, there's a team that, regardless of the quarterback play, is still able to sneak into the playoffs because they have a very good culture. They have identity. They know their identity, and they know how to control the clock. That's literally the Pittsburgh Steelers every year. And the Pittsburgh Steelers end up in everybody's top 10 rankings because they end up a playoff team. The Indianapolis Colts right now,
but do you see us putting the Steelers in the top 10 right now?
They have a legit quarterback, potentially a top 10 quarterback if he works out, and he doesn't have to do that.
Potentially,
He has to play,
great word.
He has to play RP. He doesn't have to be a hero. Anthony Richardson is a situation where he has to check it down, hand the ball off, do some RPOs, and he's got 5 wide receivers to do it with and a top 8 offensive line.
I mean, Klotz, I get your point. I don't even have the Steelers, like to your point, like the Steelers are probably I've been saying they're a playoff team. I don't even have them in my top. I did my top 15. I don't even have them in my top 15, the Steelers. So, like, I get your point, but there are teams who
at the end of the season, they're always in there.
Yeah, but we're doing, like, we have to, that's the thing where we have to see this team do it again. Like, you have a quarterback who's played 6 games or 7, whatever it is. Like, you do have to see it. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, that is huge. That is Anthony Richardson that season, and whether they won 9 games or not. If he is not Anthony Richardson or he gets hurt again, they're just going to win another 9 games, and they're not going to go win 12 games and be in, like, these top 10 teams are teams who can go win 12 games. Like,
Booner, did you have all teams on your top 10?
I had them at 11. I have them right at 11 here.
Okay, as long as you didn't have them on there. Okay, that's fair.
I have them at 11. Like, I just, there's teams where it's like you have to see it, and like we've seen it from players,
but then there's teams where you where you can watch their development. You're like, this team's building something very good, and
they're building. That's great. They're building something, but they haven't built it yet. They haven't done it yet.
Like, okay, so the top 10 teams from last year are automatically the top 10 team from this year. That's never the case in the NFL.
And this, Rando, like he said, you could say the same about the. That's wrong because the Lions just went to the NFC Championship game. Like, they just went and did it. Like, they won the NFC North. They went to the championship game. Like, they did it. Like, I could say, like, this roster can actually do it. Jared Goff has done it. Dan Campbell has done it. Like, this roster knows how to get there. Colts, it's like,
hey, Klotzy, he's been consistent. Loves the Colts.
Yeah, I respect it.
It's definitely a take we got to revisit. And I watch the Colts win the division. I mean, Klotz that'll be you want to tune in for that show if they win the
big
division.
time.
I'll never let that down.
No, you shouldn't either. Talk your shit. But I want to welcome the man, the myth. A lot would say the legend. I think a lot would.
The legend for sure.
The publisher of Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Detroit Sports Podcast. And by the way, this interview is brought to you by our good friends over at BetUS. Please welcome in the Doc, Mr. John Maakaron. John, how you doing today? Look at you. Are you in New York too? Look at you.
I am in New Jersey. I'm staring at the New York skyline. I'm directly maybe half a mile from MetLife Stadium. I'm excited. The opportunity to talk football with you guys, recap what happened. It was a crazy 2 days of joint practice. I got into the city. Man, New York is full of energy. It's a little different than what I remember 20 years ago, but oh my goodness, have I just had the best 3 days. And now I get to recap it with the fellas. It's been a good time, but my goodness, man, it might have taken me 24 hours to recover from the heat. It was brutal, and I could see why tempers were flaring. It was hot as fuck, man. For 2 days, we were trying to do everything in brutal heat. The weather here is terrible, but other than the weather, man, the football, the environment, the pizza, the food, the environment, I've had a great time, man.
The pizza. Love to hear
Let's go,
it.
Doc.
Hey, well, Doc, we're happy to have you. You know what? Joining us, even though you're on the road, you had a chance to watch the joint practice. So you were in attendance. I'll start with the very obvious one. You already know where I'm going. Kirby Joseph doing his best, Jake Paul, as now at least this year would say, Mike Tyson-esque, throwing some haymakers. What's been going on? The Lions just got fined along with the Giants $200,000 for the fighting that's been going on because they've had a ton of fights. And it's not just the Lions and Giants. It seems like a lot of training camps all over are having fights and joint practices. To you, how bad was it? Because, Doc, we brought it up. We're okay with it getting scrappy. But then there's a level it gets to where you just can't get work done. What was your takeaway from just watching all the scrapping going on?
Oh, I loved it. It was great. It was aggressive. Look, let's set the stage. If you guys remember last year, the Giants came to Detroit, and day one, the Lions embarrassed the Giants. And the heat that the Giants got from what happened on day one was completely overwhelming to the entire franchise. Many people even say it set the tone for the season. Like the Lions bitch slapped the Giants last year on day one. They had a little bit better day two, but it resonated. And so coming into joint practices, all the talk, because it was at Quest Diagnostics, it was the home of the Giants. All the talk from the media going into it was, hey, you can't let Detroit punk you again because they have the capability of doing it. And the New York media is no joke. They don't need to, step aside or have any favor for anything. They were directly pointing the finger at the Giants. Have you changed? Are you different? So you're going to come out, you got to, go at Detroit. So right away, you could see after a rep, the Giants would take an extra bump. And right away, you saw on day one, they tried to rough up one of the Lions' best players, and they went after Amon-Ra St. Brown. So right away, he set the tone, and he went after it. He was not going to take any of that shit, So it was great to watch. I was like, this is great. And I was just loving the frustration, loving the tension back and forth. Two teams going at it, and none of them were backing down. And really, it's just testosterone at the highest level. So to be there, it was great to document and to just see how crazy rabid the Giants fans were talking crap because they were right behind the Lions. Then you get to day two, and I thought that they would kind of settle down, that the coaches would talk to the players and say, hey, knock it off, like get to work. There was still a lot of work done. Yeah, there was a lot of pauses, and it gets a little bit annoying, but any breaks were great because you guys know I'm doing live updates, tweeting, taking videos, editing videos, trying to take photos. I'm doing 5 things at once. So any break in the action was great for me, and I loved it. It was entertaining. I got to then see who was posting the videos live, what was actually going on, because the Kirby fight was crazy. I was actually because I switched days. So the first day I watched the Lions offense, and the second day I watched the Lions defense. And I have another colleague who writes for the Giants on SI, and we compared notes. We worked together, and she was great. I mean, she was a great asset to discuss what was going on the other field. So I was walking because at the end of practice for red zone work, they end up switching fields into one field where offense and defense works in the red zone. I get there, and boom, I see the scuffle from the end zone perspective. So I at first thought it was Terrion Arnold that was swinging, but he was right there in the mix. But it was Kirby Joseph. And look, if you think you're going to put your hands on Kirby Joseph and he's not going to retaliate, he must have been seeing red, because the second that Neighbors tried that nonsense, he got clocked by Kirby Joseph. You're glad that his hand was okay. And look, it's clear a Dan Campbell squad is not going to take shit from anybody. And that's great to see. I thought that, it sucks that they got fined for it, but bottom line, watching it, it was thrilling. It's like basically being in a heavyweight matchup, watching it live, and you're seeing two teams go toe-to-toe and not wanting to back down. It was absolutely fabulous. I don't mind seeing that kind of stuff. It does get, by the end of practice, it does get a little bit redundant, but at the same token, it's two teams trying to stand their ground, and Detroit stood toe-to-toe with the Giants. I thought it was a great week of work, great 2 days, 4 hours, 2 hours each day, a great 2 days of joint practice for the Lions. A lot of things that they can learn from.
Doc, I'm glad you weren't out there fighting. First of all, I know you would have taken some people, but I'm glad you weren't throwing fists. One thing that stood out to me, and we kept hearing, obviously from day 1 to day 2, I think the biggest thing from the Lions' perspective, at least, was the secondary, and it seemed like there might have been some struggles. I don't know if that was. I guess we kept seeing different reports where it was like the Lions secondary is doing good, they're doing bad, and it was like the Giants kind of side of the things where they were looking at it a little different. I just want to get from your perspective from day 1 to day 2. Like, obviously the Kirby Joseph thing, like Malik Neighbors was going nuts for 2 days. We know that, but just as a secondary as a whole, Terrion Arnold, Brian Branch, Iffy, Carlton Davis, all these guys, Ennis Rakestraw. How did they look? Like, what was it as bad as kind of it was getting put out to be on Monday, into Tuesday, or were they actually starting to hold their own and stepping up and kind of improving?
Okay, let's set this scene here, okay? Because here's what tends to happen. You got fans posting videos, you got media posting videos, and what people do is they go into their camps and they say, okay, well, based on this rep, this is how it looked. Okay, so I hope that you can trust what I'm saying here. Okay, but first let's set the stage here and let's put everything into context. Okay, they're not game planning. They're not saying, hey, we're going to try this and try that. It's basically, we're going to call this defensive play and let's see how it goes. So it's not as serious as people are making it. But the way in which you want to look at joint practice is that these are opportunities for the Lions to make plays. Do you know how much value Terrion Arnold will get from seeing film of him being step for step with Malik Neighbors, but not turning around and having that play get completed? Okay, so here's the thing. Here's what happened. Early on, the Giants were able to kind of do some things against the Lions defense. And, look, the Giants came full force. And clearly the MVP of the 2 days was Malik Neighbors. The man was all over the place. He torched Carlton Davis. He got one on Terrion Arnold. Now, does that mean that the complete practice was something to be worried about for the secondary? No. It means that this is where you want to make mistakes, figure stuff out, test things out. And here's the way I looked at it, because they didn't do a lot of press man. I wrote in my notes, okay, they were giving a little bit of cushion. They were doing some things to try and set their coverage in a way to, not get beat and things like that. It wasn't as physical on the line of scrimmage as you would think in a game. But I will say this. I thought that Amik Robertson had moments where he looked strong. Terrion Arnold, you saw the video where he did end up getting the pass breakup. So here's the best way to put it. The secondary has a lot to clean up. You realize this is the first week of training camp. They're all trying to learn to play together. So, yeah, there were things that were not great. Look, Malik Neighbors is a superstar. Look, he clearly showed why he's a first-round pick. So you can't just poo-poo that. And when I wrote the Lions can't stop Malik Neighbors, it meant that it wasn't like he got 20 for 20 completions. He had 1 or 2 incompletions. But if you want to focus on the one time where he catches the ball and there's a debate whether he's out of bounds, he caught the ball, whether he landed in bounds or not. Let me just tell you this. If you saw Malik Neighbors for those 2 days, you would be like, wow, this guy's a stud. He's for real. He's the truth. He is the truth. He did whatever he needed to, but also remember that this is within the context of 7-on-7 and some team periods. 7-on-7 is made for the offense. It's just the way it is. But did they make plays? Yeah. But the secondary did as well. Carlton Davis got beat a couple times, but he came back and made plays. Stephen Gilmore made plays. You recognize that there are situations in which, the Giants reporter posted that Brian Burns was a beast. But yes, there was a rep where Taylor Decker had his way with him and pushed him aside. There's a lot of reps that take place. But when someone posts something online, they kind of post it like out of 10 reps, if someone wins 8 of them, then there's something to be said there. So Neighbors won the day 1 and day 2, clearly. But Terrion Arnold made plays. You see why he is someone that you can build upon in that secondary. I think it's great. I thought that him getting torched was great. That's good for him. Make those mistakes now in training camp where you can sit back and learn. Hey, turn your head here, learn this, learn that. And I just thought that the secondary, you always have to have a slight level of concern regarding how they gel. And then, of course, what happens after day one, Emmanuel Mosley goes down, which kind of put a damper on day two for Lions on the defense.
Yeah, kind of keeping it with the defensive side, Doc, and a guy that continues to prove me wrong. It looks like day in and day out that he steps foot on the field for the Detroit Lions this offseason. Levi Onwuzurike. Levi O. What did you see from him between the joint practices now that he's actually been able to get a taste of another offensive line, specifically a number one offensive line in front of him?
Yeah, I'm very curious because he did draw the ire of Dan Campbell on day two. They set the stage. The two coaches set the stage for, hey, let's not get too much over the line. Yeah, play competitive. Yeah, play physical, but don't do anything stupid. And on day two, Levi kept pushing it. Now, Levi did upset. He did get called out by Brian Daboll for kind of swatting at the hand of Daniel Jones. So on Monday, yeah, he did. He got into it. So
I like that.
Yeah, I like it too. Me personally, I think that Levi is showing exactly what he needs to do to keep a job. And look, I think that he looks strong. He looks physical. He can get off the line. He can get off the defensive line with some solid push. The man has earned his job. And I think when you recognize, okay, maybe DJ Reader's not ready, you can count on Levi to do some things. I thought that he competed hard. And look, it just, when your coach says, do not cross that line, and you do, he got yanked off the field. And I don't know, does he get talked to? Is that looked at as a negative? Because Dan Campbell said that's part of the evaluation. We told you guys do not step over the line. And he did. But I don't think that's going to mar the total work that he's done. He's been one of those camp guys where you can say, I'm writing 91's name in my notebook quite a bit. And I think that if he gets an opportunity this year and he stays healthy, look for him to cause some havoc and finally take the step that he needs to get his career off the ground. No doubt Levi's had a great camp.
Yeah, John, I just wanted to ask a little update on the wide receiver room. Obviously, we have a little battle going on there. Is there anyone that stood out in New York? And just basically my weekly update of Jameson Williams. How's my guy look?
Oh, yeah, that was great. Monday, I'm sitting there on the sideline, and all of a sudden, Goff unloads to Jameson Williams, and he made it look easy. He turned on the jets, and he blew past the Giants defender, and he got to wave at him and point at him, and it was great. He was somebody that took advantage of the opportunity. He had the red zone touchdown on Monday. Jameson Williams is doing his thing. Professional. He's the truth, and he's putting himself up there week by week with his performances that when he is serious about his craft and he's locked in, he's going to handle business. And I think that the 2 days were solid for Jameson Williams. You look at it now, and people are looking at other wide receivers. Look, unfortunately, Donovan Peoples-Jones is repping with the threes, and he's not doing things. He's just, they try to target him, but he's not making impactful plays. So, I can tell you that if we do another 53-man projection Friday, Saturday, unless he balls out Thursday in the preseason game, I don't think he makes his team. I mean, I think that you look at two guys, and look, you guys have heard the daily press conferences. I said, hey, when I was asking about Isaiah Williams, what is a guy like that's battling for a job? What does he got to do to make a team? And Dan Campbell said, it's not the flash plays. It's just do what you got to do every single day and be consistent. And two guys have been consistent where you're writing their name as receptions, open, doing things, getting targeted. You're seeing Darius Fountain handle business, and I think he's the clear guy that you can put at wide receiver 3 or 4, and he can be productive. I think that he's a big-bodied receiver, can high point the ball, is all over the place, repping with the ones. He's moved himself up the depth chart. He's doing great things. And if he has a rough moment, he works hard to get back at it. And then the other guy is, and the media's kind of put it this way, for all the people that love TK85, Caden Davis 88 is just an all-around better version of Tom Kennedy. Straight across the board. A little bit more physical, a little bit more sure-handed, a little bit more impactful, a little bit faster. He's just catching the ball, making plays, and he's all over the notebook. So Fountain and Caden Davis, I would say at worst have earned a spot on the practice squad. But if they show out in the preseason, those two guys are going to make it super tough to really make the decision tough for Brad Holmes as to who to drop from the roster, because Caden Davis and Darius Fountain, man, they're balling out and they're making plays day after day after day. It's 12-88 after the starters.
Wow. KD 88. Love to hear it.
KD 88. It's great to see because they're consistent. I had a chance to talk to Caden Davis and Doris Fountain. I think they both want to work hard and are doing everything possible to make this roster, and they're competing hard. And you see it. When they make plays, they start repping with the ones, and they're also holding their own when they're going up against better competition.
Real quick before Jeff goes, real quick, just a wide receiver question. Just I'll let you go here. The Jameson Williams thing, is he starting to? And this was a conversation we had yesterday. We were talking about the kind of the reliability of Jameson Williams. Does it feel like he's starting to get a little comfortable with Jared Goff to where it's like he's more reliable now? I know in the past he's had some drops and there's been that little question mark. Is that kind of gone, or is it kind of starting to feel a little bit better to where it's like, hey, we can rely on JMO? I kind of gave the example to where at some point, hopefully, Goff can rely on him like he did with Josh Reynolds. Is it starting to get that feeling a little bit to where that connection's starting to kind of mold together?
Yeah, no doubt. You're starting to see Jameson get targeted. I mean, that rep was great. I thought that, they clearly wanted to see Jameson Williams go deep and turn on the Jets, and he did that. Yeah, the connection's getting there, and you see opportunities that, hey, if this offense can add more of an explosive element to it, my goodness, it's going to just pose such a problem. But you look at Jameson Williams, and outside of the explosiveness, he can do so many different things, just like Deebo Samuel. I know you guys were doing the depth chart. If Jameson Williams takes off and you're able to give him certain reverses or handoffs and use him in the intermediate passing game and let him do his thing with picking up speed and letting him get momentum, you saw in the NFC Championship game, if Jameson Williams, the X factor really of the football team, if he takes it to that next step and he's consistent, Lions no doubt would be number one in most people's power rankings, and they could get there by week 2 or 3 if Jameson balls out. He's been playing that well.
Yeah, I'm just sorry, Doc.
He's shook.
I'm just processing DPJ might not make the roster, but
well, you guys are reading it. Is he doing anything? Are you? I'm not seeing him.
Hey, Doc, we
I've been questioning it since day one.
We always break down your articles, Doc, and you have been consistent, and so have a lot of writers.
Not doing anything.
He has not been doing it.
I got killed after minicamp when I called DPJ out, and shout out to you, Doc, because when I called him out originally, you the next day went asked Dan Campbell about him, and he ended up not saying like nothing good, and I was, guess what? There's actually something there, and then I got killed. The chat, hey, shout out to chat. We love the people listening. They came at me hard. They killed me. They killed me for it. Now look at it.
But in the end, they like the big-bodied receiver that makes plays. They thought maybe it's DPJ, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't been consistent yet. And maybe he's one of those guys that when the bright lights are on in the game, maybe he'll turn it up and he'll make plays. But in practice, he's not consistently getting his number written down. We write down every single play. And you're not seeing 19 catching the ball. You're just not.
Doc, I do want to bring up another player. Speaking of guys, not that he's in the same camp. I want to make that very clear. But Jack Campbell, because we'd had this discussion about Jack Campbell before. And sorry, Booner's making me laugh because we argued on the way to Nashville about
for like 2 hours.
No, Doc, you don't understand.
2 hours.
You don't understand.
No, but Doc, I'm not going to lie. This is how much we love you. We were like arguing and we go, screw it. We're texting Doc. And I texted you immediately because Doc will tell us the truth. What has been not that we're, hitting the panic button, but my big thing is he's always been my number one breakout player. And I'm still standing by that with JMO, those two guys. For someone like you, who's been there every single day, what has been your takeaway from Jack? We know Jack's solid, but do you still have that faith in what you've seen that he can really take that, second year jump, or maybe it's just too early to expect that? What has been your takeaways with Jack?
Yeah, it's just tough because I know you're not seeing him consistently getting the sack totals and the pressures, but look, it's tough for linebackers because you got to kind of hold up against the quarterback. You got to go full speed, but then you got to try to let up against the quarterback. But I'll say this, he's definitely getting an education in coverage working against Sam Laporta. So far, Sam Laporta has had the edge when he's gone out in coverage against Jack Campbell, but that can only help him. And so I look at it like this. Jack Campbell looks a little bit more comfortable, more fluid, in a sense that you say, okay, you want him to end up becoming the Mike linebacker and handle everything. Now, is he getting his name written down and making key impactful plays? Not as much as maybe we expect more. But at the same token, here's the thing, and here's what's difficult is that sometimes, Jack Campbell was brought in as a first-round draft pick, right? So who gets offended and pissed off? And that's number 55, Derek Barnes. Well, Derek Barnes is like, okay, you guys the organization wants to replace me. He stepped his game up. He's violent. He's much more aggressive. He's all over the place. And Derek Barnes is making more of an impact in terms of practice reps. But I think with what Jack Campbell is going to be set to do, I think that he's prepared to do everything possible to make the second-year jump. Now, is it going to be to the heights that everybody thinks? I think that position is just super challenging in terms of all the things you got to have in order. And I just think that Jack Campbell is going to benefit from the defensive line being much better and the secondary being much better as well, so that when he's asked to go in coverage, man, it's just tough. Linebackers against tight ends in this day and age, it's a fun matchup. And I think that Jack Campbell loves, learning from and working against Sam Laporta. But, man, it just goes to show you, I don't say, hey, man, Jack Campbell's struggling. I say, wow, how great is Sam Laporta that he can just make a move and just shake a linebacker and just so easily get open. But Jack Campbell has to improve. I think that the next coming weeks, I do believe you'll start to hear a little bit more impacted. Look, remember, we've only had now a week of pads and a couple of padded practices against the New York Giants. I expect that as camp progresses, as you start to read more about this defense gelling and getting more into camp, I think you'll start to be comfortable with Jack Campbell. Look, he's going to be consistent. I think that the room is set up perfectly with the veteran leadership of Alex Anzalone and Jalen Reeves-Maybin. You got Derek Barnes, literally, who's kind of emerging as that kind of vocal, violent leader. We kind of thought it would maybe be more Jack Campbell, but as he described himself, he's got the least amount of swag on the team. But that guy's all business, and I think that once he keeps learning, getting back in the film room, I think that he'll start to make steady progress. It's not where you want it to be right now, but I don't think that you have to worry about Jack Campbell. If you guys are going to do – I wouldn't worry about Jack Campbell. I think he's got the right mindset. Do not worry about Jack Campbell. If you're going to start doing the worry meter, I would worry about the secondary because you have good players in Terry Arnold and Carlton Davis, but you still have Carlton Davis looking to prove himself as a true number one. And Malik Neighbors was not shy to go run right at him. And Daniel Jones did not shy away from throwing at Carlton Davis. But he makes some plays in camp, but also he gives up some stuff. So Carlton Davis also has some things to learn. Terry Arnold is a rookie. He's going to give up some plays. I'm curious to see how they develop over the course of time. And I would say the worry meter should be the secondary at right now at the top of mind. But I think that they can do some work to alleviate people's minds as the season progresses. They'll get better. It might not be right away where they're just lighting up the world, but the secondary has talent. And I think when they gel, man, look out. I think they can do some things.
Doc, wanted to bring this up too. And you, since you've been around the team all off season, I brought this up yesterday and I kind of came out and said that I think it might be almost time. And maybe this is because, and we haven't seen any preseason games, but maybe it's time to start thinking about the Detroit Lions looking for a backup quarterback to go into the season, to where if something does happen for a couple of weeks with Goff, someone's able to step in and hold you afloat and win games. Is that too far off of a statement? Like, where do you stand on that? Like, do you still think, I know a lot of fans and a lot of people are holding hope that maybe Hendon Hooker performs well tomorrow in the next couple preseason games, and he kind of takes that step to where he could play that. I just don't think, like, at least from when we were at camp, for me, it didn't look like Hendon Hooker was close to being able to be that backup. And I know Sudfeld's just a very solid player and a solid quarterback, but do you think that that's something that they should look into, or where are you at with that backup quarterback battle, especially being a Super Bowl contender? I do think it's something to talk about and something to kind of be on the lookout for.
Yeah, it's the best way to look at it is, look, as we talked, nothing's changed in the depth chart. Sudfeld's number 2, Hooker's number 3. He hasn't been that great, and it kind of stunk because we anticipated that there would be more work, but on day 2, he was with the 3s, and the 3s only got 2 reps at a time. So I don't know if they were trying to protect him, but man, all I can say is that he wasn't that great on day 2. I wasn't all that impressed with what I saw on day 1. Made some plays, his scrambling ability was there. Yeah, he made some throws that were interesting, but there are still too many mistakes in terms of pre-snap, what was going on. And here's the part that sometimes you realize maybe a person's snake bitten. James Mitchell, it's in the red zone, and Hendon Hooker is, doing his pre-snap stuff, and he's not doing it correctly. And there was supposed to be something that happened that did not take place. Well, Ben Johnson immediately is like going crazy on the sideline. So the play gets run, and James Mitchell gets the catch, basically jogs into the end zone. I'm like, all right, hey, he makes a play. He's jogging into the end zone with Ben Johnson screaming at the top of his lungs. And it was just, you just felt bad for you. Well, the best way to put it is, I think there was supposed to be motion, or I think that the way in which it was supposed to be done was that you probably, I think Hooker needed to call the wide receiver over for a motion. It didn't happen. And Ben Johnson lit him up. And that was that. And he got off the field real fast. So, look, he makes mistakes. You want him to make it. But, yeah, he needs look, I don't know if he's going to do enough to jump Nate Sudfeld. I don't think you need to go out and get another backup quarterback. You look at it and you say, it's all on Jared Goff's shoulder. If he goes down, it's all on his shoulder. If he goes down, I don't know if you want to take the chance on another veteran. Look, Jared Goff's been versatile. It is a gamble, but I look at it like I think Nate Sudfeld has done enough at this point to be the backup. But do you want to be more comfortable and invest? Well, if you do that, it's going to cost you $10 million, $15 million. And they got two guys that are a little bit more affordable. You have to hope that Hendon Hooker steps it up over the next couple of weeks. But, yeah, best way to describe it, he's been subpar, not good enough for the standards that the Lions need. Not good enough at all.
Tough.
Hendon Hooker making his debut tomorrow, Doc, and so is one Jake Bates. A very polarizing player, but in New York, what have you seen from him? Because it seems like on social media, at least, one day everybody loves him, and then everybody the next day is like, I don't know about this Jake Bates guy. But what did you see when you're in New York from Jake Bates? The only kicker on the Lions roster right now.
Only kicker right now, and he went 6 of 9 from what I saw on day 2. He's struggling from 43 to 50 consistently. Look, here's what people love about him. He's got a huge leg. Like, if he just sits there and kicks it as far as possible, not knowing where it goes, man can kick it 60 yards. Like, he can just consistently kick it 60 yards. Problem is, he's not kicking it through the uprights, and that's the other part of the job. And here's something that's, I've been weighing. Clearly, and I hope we get a chance to talk to Dave Phipp in the next couple of weeks, but clearly, Jake Bates has an intangible. He has the leg strength, but he's not an experienced kicker. And so it would seem to me that a special teams coach could help a kicker with accuracy. But right now, Jake Bates is not accurate enough. Like, if it was up to me right now, he would not make the team. You go somewhere else, or you at least bring somebody else in and be more prone to have a competition. Bates, had a real brutal practice where he was just missing kicks from extra point range, and it was rough. And it's like one of those things where I want to ask Dave Phipp, can you take a guy, like, let's say, for example, I was blessed with a leg and I kick it 70 yards, but I have no clue where it's going. Can you consistently work on somebody and get them to be more accurate? That's to be determined, because right now it does not seem to be the case. Right now, Jake Bates is struggling, and not struggling with distance. He's struggling with accuracy. And in the NFL, you got to be consistent. So it'll be a big opportunity for him to make some kicks in some action. But remember, I think that as of now, they have a guy that they want to develop. I think they like the intangible. They like, okay, we got a guy that can kick the ball far. Now the secret sauce is, hey, kick it through those damn uprights. And he's got to do it more consistently. He racked up some misses, but they're mostly from like mid-range in the mid 40-yard range. So it'll be interesting to see how the preseason shakes out. And do they just send him out there to kick, or do they say, hey, Hendon Hooker, run this offense and be aggressive? So I'm curious to see how Jake Bates does, because outside of Hendon Hooker, many fans are right to be concerned about the kicking situation. The Lions have not gotten it consistent since Matt Prater.
And Doc, we kind of been talking about the defense a lot this whole offseason, the secondary, and obviously the edge position opposite of Hutch. How did James Houston and Marcus Davenport look against the Giants in their little weekend there, or their week there?
Yeah, no doubt. I liked what I saw from Marcus Davenport. Man, I liked when I asked Ali McNeil about Marcus Davenport. He's like, that dude's a silent killer. We're like, what do you mean? He's like, that dude wants to rip your face off, but is a nice guy. Like, he walks off the field. He's got a nice smile on his face. And I'm like, hey, man, I'm looking forward to talking to you. He's like, just nods and smiles and walks off. And, I hope for the opportunity to get to know him a little bit more throughout the season. But when he's out there, my goodness, you've seen some of the videos I posted at Detroit Podcast. You see his physicality. You see the way in which he wants to play. I think that Davenport is somebody that, if he stays healthy, I think will provide a realistic option. James Houston, I think the defensive line struggled a little bit on Monday. It wasn't the best showing for them, but on day 2, you saw them rebound a little bit. You see James Houston kind of doing some things along the defensive line, reading plays well. I thought that his speed was good. I thought that his quickness and his agility was there. And I just think that for James Houston, it's all about it's not about the skill. He can sack the quarterback. It's about, hey, don't play hero ball. Like, you can't have a rep where you're exactly where you need to be. You're going to sack the quarterback. And then the next play, you're out of position and you're not sealing the gap. Like, you're going to piss off the coach. The coach does not care if you record 40 sacks a year, but then you give up 20 chunk plays. Like, they don't want that. They want, hey, on this play, your job is to do X, and just do it. But I think James Houston innately is a pass rusher, and they're trying to mold him into a lot more than that to be a 3-down defensive outside linebacker. But it just instincts are hard to break, and they're drilling it in him to, hey, do more of what we need, do your job, stay within the parameters of the scheme. But it's just hard sometimes when you're somebody like James Houston and you have an innate skill. You just got to be consistent, because there are times he draws the ire of the coaching staff, and there's times where you're like, man, that guy could destroy somebody if you let him be out there. But I tend to kind of go with the idea of, hey, if your skill is sack the quarterback and just go do that, and just be that guy, be the sack master of the Detroit Lions defense. But the Lions want to develop players to say, hey, if this guy goes down, you can do this. And they need guys that can do 2 or 3 things at the same time, because if somebody goes down, if you have a guy that's more versatile and you can put him at different spots along the defensive line, that's much more of an asset. So James Houston just has to be more consistent, stop being the hero, and do what the coaching staff tells you. And the more he does that, the faster he'll end up playing a lot more reps.
Yeah, I mean, to your point there, getting guys to be able to play different positions, well, they're going to need someone to play nickel if it's not Amik Robertson, because E-Man went down with a torn pec. I know you wrote about it on Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, and we talked about it earlier in the week. Just absolutely devastating, Doc. I mean, tear your ACL, you come back almost a year later, tear your other ACL.
Man.
And then now he recovers and then tears his pec. So he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. Devastating news. What do you, just your opinion on that? And also Dan Campbell mentioning how they're kind of getting iffy worked in at nickel just for a potential situation like this. What direction do you think they go at nickel here, Doc? I would think they lean to Amik Robertson, unless someone else unless they want to get all their best players on the field. Maybe you play iffy there.
Yeah, no doubt. It's tough when you hear the news that Emmanuel Mosley goes down in practice. It's unfortunate, but there's still a chance he could come back. Maybe a similar situation if he recovers like CD Deuce, who was able to come back for a postseason run. I don't think that Emmanuel Mosley is going to hang it up, but man, you just feel bad. Sometimes some guys are just snake bitten with injuries and they just can't consistently get out there, and it just sucks. Dan Campbell can relate because toward the end of his career, injuries caught up to him. But look, is it impactful? I think that you lose a depth player, but you never really knew what you had in Emmanuel Mosley. You had a physical guy that played with the 49ers, but he just couldn't stay healthy. So you have a lot of depth at nickel. I mean, Christian wrote about it on Lions on SI. He kind of looked at all the 4 players that are in the competition, their strengths and weaknesses. You can check it out. But yeah, it's Amik Robertson's job to lose at this point. But here's the thing. You have a lot of options. You can play Ennis Rakestraw there, you can play Brian Branch there, and you can play Ifeatu Melifonwu. And Ifeatu is the perfect example of what the Lions are looking for, but that's not easy to accomplish. Like Melifonwu is a guy that was a cornerback that they wanted, that they felt like, hey, he can play safety because of his physicality, but they keep switching his position. But the Lions have always said from day one, since I've been talking to Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell, that they said he's a defensive back. And that doesn't mean that, hey, he's a safety and that's it. What they want to do, and you can clearly see, hey, if we need you at cornerback, go play cornerback. If we need you at the nickel spot for this matchup, do that. And so Ifatu, while at first maybe there was some pushback, I think they understand that, hey, if you want to play in Detroit's system, you got to learn multiple crafts. And that's what they're trying to do. Some guys don't like that. And some guys maybe do not like that now. But I think that it's smart when you look at a player. If you can play multiple spots, hey, if we need you at nickel against this matchup, or if something happens to Robertson in training camp, hey, we have options. And I think that training guys at different spots is a smart thing. And I can't knock the Lions coaching staff. But at the same token, there's a debating philosophy that says, hey, if a guy is nabbed and targeted to be a safety, just put him at safety, let him do some things. Because there was a time, I think year 1, year 2 in Aaron Glenn's scheme, where a player, a defensive back, said, like, hey, I was given so much, I was flooded with information, and I couldn't play the position right. Then Aaron Glenn backed off a little bit, and they just kind of made the job simple and said, hey, it happened to even Brian Branch. Like, they threw so much at him that it just kind of stalled his progression. And
happened to Matthew Betts.
Yeah, happened to Matthew Betts. So you recognize that sometimes they just do that, and you got to see what an individual, how they respond to it. But I think that Ifatu Melifonwu would be great anywhere in Detroit's defense, and hopefully that the opportunities come and you mix and match guys. I think the nickel spot is the safe spot where there's going to be some productivity. The question mark is going to be, okay, behind Terry and Arnold and Carlton Davis, you have great options, I think, with Ennis Rakestraw. It would have been nice to see if Emmanuel Mosley could have seen some stuff on the outside too, but you lost a depth piece there, and it'll be interesting to see. Now, Stephen Gilmore repping with the 3s and 2s a little bit. He's been around the football. He makes plays, and it'll be curious to see how his camp progresses when the lights are on in the preseason.
Doc, I want to throw this out there too. Obviously, we're less than 24 hours away of the Detroit Lions kind of football being back. I know it's only preseason, but we're going to see the new jerseys, all that. What are you going into tomorrow? You're going to be in New York. What are you kind of going in looking at? Like, what players are the biggest? Like, hey, we need to keep an eye on these guys. If you have a list, cut guys, just kind of like they're like, obviously there's the positional battles, but there's also like those cut guys. Who are you going in being like, yeah, everyone needs to keep an eye on these players, whether it's offensively or defensively?
Yeah, no doubt. It's going to be fun, man. I'm excited. First, let me tell you, the transportation around New York is great. You can get an Uber within 5 minutes. I mean, a little bit of traffic. It's great. Traffic around MetLife is crazy. There's one way in, one way out, and there's a huge-ass mall literally right across the street that makes things a little bit confusing. But first and foremost, let's hope I get there, which I think is good. I can literally walk there if the Uber driver takes me to the wrong spot. I'm excited to go to MetLife. The weather's going to be nasty, I think. If you do some forecasting, I think there's going to be some chance of rain. So first and foremost, I hope they get it in, because whatever's going on with this hurricane's fucking things up for those in Florida. And now it's chasing us up the East Coast. I'm like, oh my goodness. We've had like some humid days and then just days of rain. And so first and foremost, I hope they play 4 quarters. And I hope everybody, number one key in the preseason is stay healthy. Let's hope that everybody that plays this game ends up leaving the game healthy. And if you guys paid attention to Lions on SI, the news of Jared Goff and the starters not playing is not news that was broken this week. Dan Campbell said it to Sirius Radio last week when they came to town. I always pay attention to when Dan Campbell, because I love Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller, Jim Miller being a former Spartan. So whenever they set up their table, I tell my guys, hey, they're talking to Sirius. And Dan Campbell said then, last week, he said, hey, Jared Goff, and the starters are not going to play. So you're not going to see superstars play. So the football is going to be, after the first quarter or two, it's going to be effing sloppy. But look, here's what I'm looking for. Clearly, like you said, I want to see bets. How does he make impactful plays? I want to see impact. I want to see clearly the rookies. I think Mekhi Wingo, talking to him, he's got that dog mentality. He's working hard. He's learning from Aleem McNeil. You can hear his comments after I talked to him after practice on Tuesday. He's learning from Aleem McNeil, who's taken him under his wing. I want to see how he does. I'm thrilled, man. I think the guy that could make a highlight play, hell, if I want to make a bold prediction, you guys heard what I did last week. Maybe Sione Vaki can get a 60-yard run against a porous defense. So that would be great to see. I want to see the Vaki hype train take off. There's a lot of hype trains going on. I want to see if Vaki can make a play against the defense. I want to see Giovanni Manu when he's tired and how he handles certain schemes and how he handles blocking if he gets his opportunity. So clearly the rookies, clearly the wide receivers we talked about, who steps up. But to me, I think the most important person, the most important two people we talked about, Hendon Hooker has to look like he understands Ben Johnson's offense. And Jake Bates, if he's called upon, has to put the ball through the uprights. And I just want to see, like, the depth players. Like, you want to see if Nice has an opportunity to run this offensive line well. You want to see how the offensive line looks because, unfortunately, day two, the second-string offensive line had a brutal day. Patricia messaged and wrote that they had a lot of flags, procedural type stuff. It wasn't as crisp as she would have expected or I would have expected either. So let's see how the backups do in those situations. Then you want to see the defensive backs and how Stephen Gilmore does, how the likes of Ennis Rakestraw does in the preseason. He's thrilled. He'll have his opportunity. So I'm excited, man. It's going to be fun. Look, it's tough. You know, it's preseason and it's not full game plan, not full exotic looks here. It's just execute the play, but it's football, man. I'm excited to see the Lions in their jersey. Man, traveling here was worth it. I hope that you guys get the opportunity to get on the road. You get a little bit more insight to see how everything happens. And, man, it was fun to see the NFL world here. You just see the hype. You just see – so, if you want to laugh, listen, I don't want to insult anybody, but Adam Schefter was walking around, and if that dude is 5'3", I'll be surprised. That dude was walking around, I'm like, is that Adam Schefter? That's a short little dude. And I'm like, that's the head of the NFL insider information. That was like, oh my God. I wanted to go over there and be like, hey, what's going on, Adam? But no, he has a presence. Like when he's there, you see him, but he's not that tall. It was great to see. It was great to see Schefter in New York. Good Morning Football was there. It was great. The fans of New York, man, they're amazing. They were shit talking Dan Skipper. It was crazy, and they were not happy to see the fisticuffs that were going on, and they were ripping on the Lions. So it was, listen, man, it was top to bottom a great experience. I truly hope that, I believe that you guys liked what I did with the live updates and giving you a sense of what it was like to be there. That's all my only mission is to be like, hey, if somebody was there, could they relay the information as if I was there? And that's all I tried to do. And I'll say this. Sometimes you have to recognize trends. There was no chance in hell I was taking a plane to New Jersey because I knew it was coming. It was pretty clear over the last 6 months, something's crazy going on with these airlines. So, guys, I'm not going to hide it. I rented a Grand Wagoneer. And
there we go, Doc.
Doc rented a Grand Wagoneer, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this kind of stuff anymore. You know why? The fucking seats give you the seats massage you. Like you can get a massage. I'm sitting there driving. I'm like, this is a $100,000 car that I rented for the week, and it is amazing.
They don't know that though, Doc. They don't know that. They don't know it's a rental.
The Jeep Grand Wagoneer is legendary. I mean, I was like, I could never drop that kind of money for a car, but the seats it was the best 10-hour drive of my life. I loved it. There was no way I was going to rely on some airline to get me there. Even in the rain, listen, I'll recommend this. If you guys can get a chance to travel through Pennsylvania, it was 3.5, 4 hours through that part of town, through the beautiful mountains. It was a beautiful drive. I love driving long distances. I loved every minute of it. It beats flying by 1,000,000%. It's long. It's a little bit tedious, but I listened to you guys' show. I listened to other podcasts, and it was a beautiful experience. I can't wait to get in that car and drive back. I love it so much. Driving is great. It's a great experience. There's no headache. I'm not dealing with delays. Like some guys had to fly. Like I heard stories of guys having to fly into Hartford at 3 a.m., driving 2 hours. Some guys missed practice.
Hey,
I'm
Colton
like,
Pouncey.
yeah. I talked to everybody on. I heard everybody's story about who came and who didn't, and I'm like, I would not count on airlines at this point in time. And so I'm just excited for the opportunity. I hope everybody liked it, and I just felt like that the joint practices provided a lot of insights. And I love the fact that when you have these joint practices, I mean, literally, you had a guy in me watching Malik Neighbors catch the ball every single time. And then you got people look at one incompletion and are like, what are you talking about? You're the homer. Or what are you talking about? You lack perspective. I'm like, listen, man, the guy went 17 of 18 or 17 of 19. The ball like zapped to his hands. And I was mesmerized. I was like, this dude's legit. This dude's coming out here balling for it all. And it was a great experience. And I love the camps that kind of form. And they're like, there were people attacking Patricia Trania, my colleague, about her takes on Brian Burns. Brian Burns won a lot of reps. He was awesome. He was awesome to see. He's going to make everybody look like that. So it's not a knock on Penei Sewell or Taylor Decker that Brian Burns was doing some things. But yes, Penei Sewell won a lot of reps. Taylor Decker won a lot of reps. But Brian Burns was moving his way. He was worth every penny for them. But at the same token, Levi Onwuzurike did well. Oh, I want to close on this. Booner, forget about it. Forget about Defensive Player of the Year. I know it's not a situation that happens too often, but why not Hutch MVP? The man is Hutch MVP. He gets out there, he blows through everybody. Listen, the man's hungry. The man looked ferocious out there, and he just came to work. And if he plays at that level where you're just writing 97 all the time, look out. He was in the backfield. Oh, one last name I want to throw out there that has been doing work that will make the team. Okay, and eventually I'm going to have to now track him down and talk to him to get his story. But Kyle Pecco is a Detroit Lions defensive lineman. There was one rep where he and Hutchinson just destroyed the Giants' offensive line and got back there. They would have destroyed the quarterback. So I think Pecco is now above Broderick Martin, but just a little bit because of his veteran leadership and his experience with Terrell Williams. But you're going to learn the name Kyle Pecco. He's just all over the place. 96 and 97 wreaked havoc. So it was a great joint practice. I think that you got insider analysis from what we did at Lions on SI. And I had a chance to talk to a lot of people, but I brought the news here first as to what I saw. And I think that you guys appreciated it.
Love it. You know what?
Bet your ass.
That was great, Doc.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we got Adam Shefty short.
Yeah.
A lot of takeaways. I mean, come on, you get it all with the Doc. That's why we love him. And we do.
And okay, and here's the 2 minutes on the city of New York. It has everything in all-in-one chaotic mess of a melting pot. Like I've been to Times Square at night. You literally can have a person that's probably worth $50 million walking the street right next to a homeless person who's talking to himself, asking if George Bush is coming back to office. It's crazy to see, but it's just it's go with the flow mentality. But it is packed. It's full of energy. It's full of life. The pizza is amazing. The food is amazing. Street vendors for days. It's just craziness all the way around. It's just literally like a circus of people just doing a bunch of things. And the energy level there was so fun to get into town. I loved every second of it. It's expensive, but at the same token, you have a good time and you experience it for the week. So I've had a good week. I'm coming back into town Friday. And like I said, we'll have a full recap of the game. I'll be there. So enjoy the game. Enjoy the Lions in their new jerseys. And, hey, the Detroit Lions are going to put football on tape for the first time this year. And I can't wait to be there. At MetLife Stadium, let's go.
Oh, it's going to be great. You guys please go check out. Link will be in the description. Go check out Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated. John will have it all covered. John, we appreciate you. Have a safe drive/flight back. And then we'll catch you next week, my man. Appreciate you a ton. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. Driving, baby. No flights for me. Hell no.
All right, there you go. Smart man. Very smart man. Have a safe drive. There you go. John Maakaron, the doc. And again, this interview
What a
slash
legend.
episode was brought to you by Bet US. John Maakaron that man calling Adam Schefter short. And I've seen Doc. He ain't a tall fella. So the fact that Doc's calling him short means Adam Schefter is short.
Yeah.
That man is really short.
Hey, Chef. Hey, that's a Michigan man, though. We respect Michigan man. Come on now. Put some respect
It's
on
very
Adam
true.
Schefter's name.
Oh,
It's very
It's
true.
not PPJ.
You're looking at a future Adam Schefter over here. Just kidding.
well,
Whoa.
yeah, but not
There you go,
5'3" though. Booner, you're taller, Adam Schefter.
I am like 5'10", so that's like a big difference.
A little better. But yeah, great stuff from John, man. New York is very interesting. I mean, you guys, have you guys been to New York at all? Have you taken a vacation there? Saw it?
Boone went there like 2
really
weeks
don't.
ago.
I was gonna say I just missed
Oh,
the show
yeah.
for a week for a vacation.
But
full week.
what Doc was saying, he's so right. Like, there's two.
Yeah.
It is a melting pot of just like
I think it's like when I went
interesting people, very
for sure.
interesting people.
When I said I was going on vacation in New York, a lot of people were like, "Oh, New York!" Like, I think it's a good it's an interesting city. Like, there's so much to do. Like, you could go to New York and like I could go there every year for the next 30 years for a vacation for a week, and I could do something different every time. Like, everything's just different. Like, you can always find things to do. The pizza, dude, every single night. I was telling you guys, like, I ate so much that week. Like, it was like I didn't eat for the week after because I would eat pizza. I would go get a slice of pizza on the corner every single night and get a nice deli sandwich, some desserts. Like, it was just I was constantly going.
Is New York in your top 5, Boone?
Yeah, actually, probably. I like New York. I like New York. Nashville's now number 1. Miami number 2.
Wow.
I haven't been to a bunch of places, but I like
Where does
Chicago.
Michigan rank?
Oh, Michigan's Michigan. I love it. Like, Northern Michigan's the best
That-
of all time.
That doesn't rank it.
Man
Where does
just
it
wrote
rank?
them all.
No, I don't rank Michigan. That's just like it's not fair. It can't be on the map. It can't be on the list. We live here. We live in Michigan. You know,
Mike,
like Northern Michigan,
don't.
Traverse
I
City,
don't.
Mackinac.
yeah, I was just saying, Mike, you agree
Come
with
on
Louise?
now.
You thi-
Come on.
You gotta rank it, Boone. Where is
Come
it?
on.
Where is it, Boone?
Number 1, it has to be then. Number 2, Nashville.
All right, there
That's
you
what
go.
we're looking for, Boone.
I would like to take the home state out, but I get what you guys are doing here. I see it. You guys are trying to set some narratives. You're trying to set me up.
Yes, we
I
were.
see Ike King Horse says L.A. West is best.
I've never been out west.
I visited LA once. I visited my brother out there. He doesn't live there no longer, but the first like wake up call to LA, or I guess it was. I went to Hollywood. We were just walking through and checking stuff out. Went to a McDonald's and there was a dude just peeing right in McDonald's, just straight up just peeing right inside the McDonald's. And that, oh yeah, like just. I mean, we walked in and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is Hollywood. Yeah, just a dude just taking a piss right in the middle of the McDonald's. So you know what? Take that for what you will. New York's kind of similar. A lot of randomness over there. So Nashville is up there, but hey, Detroit, nothing like it. Nothing
Best
like
city in the world.
it. Nothing like it. Going through there on a Saturday afternoon, checking stuff out. Maybe bring a female down there. A lot of versatility. Not overcrowded to where Nashville at night you're like, it's like you can't even. Everyone, you're bumping shoulders with everybody in the street. I like that.
Shirts.
Yeah. It's a lot of vendors out in Nashville and New York. You go around, there's food everywhere. So I guess that's a positive. But yeah, I love where we live here.
I mean, I need to get out west. I need to figure this thing out. One of my goals is to be in a movie. I mean, I need to get to Hollywood at some point. So I need to go figure this thing out.
Said one of my goals is to be in a movie.
That is.
Yeah,
I
one
like
of my
it, Boone.
goals.
I like it.
It's to be in a Seth Rogen movie. So I have to get in a couple other ones before I can do that.
We got to get you to Hollywood. All right,
So I've got to get in some movies or some
Doesn't
TV
do
shows.
many movies anymore, Boone. You're gonna have to sneak into one.
I know that's the
That's kinda
problem.
off the
Maybe
map
now
now.
it's like maybe I have to switch it over to like a Shane Gillis movie since he's like the new Adam Sandler.
Hey, Coach Walk asked, like, where's
Don't
Toledo
say
rank?
Adam Sandler, that's what he's
Toledo's bottom
Yeah,
5.
we're talking cities and Clancy's over there like he's quiet like please don't bring up Toledo. Please don't bring up Toledo.
There's
Please don't.
little. I like the parks. I like the art museum.
Oh, okay.
They got a good pizza spot on campus at Toledo.
All right, there we go. We were working with something.
He's digging.
Yeah.
He's digging.
Yeah,
I
that's
like
about
that.
it. Spaghetti Warehouse is all right. It's
Toledo
lost its
Mud
touch.
Hens?
Shout out Kareem Hunt.
Like the Mud Hens
Toledo.
are just like everybody says that. It's like if you go to more than 3 Mud Hens game, like you're over it. Like you're not like
wow.
My friend Raj would beg to differ.
that is
Shout out
true.
Raj.
Yeah,
If you have a burning
Yeah,
passion for
Raj.
baseball, if you're a diehard for baseball, you can go out there and watch the Mud Hens games. But
Mhm.
like you go to the Mud Hens games, you drink. Now what? You go home. You go home. Like
Yeah.
you don't go across the street. Like there's a couple of bars. There's Ye Old Cock and Bowl. If you want to go to that, that's probably the busiest bar in Toledo. That's what
No,
it's
that's
called.
more you. That's what you'd probably. I think that's more. your
I
alley.
think I went out in Toledo twice, ever.
Wow.
Tough city.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
Hey,
like
well, we love all.
drive,
Hey,
it's just empty.
if
Like
you're
it's not
tuning in
even
from
lit up
Toledo,
at night.
we love you. Not going to go out of our way to just come visit. We don't have a reason to, but our good friend Klotzy, we always go to visit him.
Shout out Klotzy.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
Tony Tacos overrated as fuck. Overrated again. Lost its
Just-
touch. Everything good about Toledo lost its touch.
Yeah, since Kareem Hunt left, there's nothing left of it. Kareem
Yeah,
Hunt left.
Stuff,
Quinyon.
man.
Yeah,
Stuff.
Quinyon's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here we go. That guy up north says, at crunch time, Toledo was one of the shadiest experiences I've ever had in my truck driving days. 2 a.m. detour led me to a small neighborhood. Even police just looked and shook heads at me.
But he was probably on
Like-
Lagrange Street.
Like, what the hell are you doing out here? Like,
He was on Lagrange Street probably.
oh, jeez. All right, we'll get out of here. Appreciate you guys so much, man, for tuning in. We appreciate the doc for crushing it as always. Boone, what's going on? What's up?
Just I want to remind the people tomorrow pregame show 6 to 7.
Good
and
man.
then 7 o'clock. I think what we'll do is we'll do 7 watch party through the end of the show, or through not through the end of the show, through the end of the game, and maybe we're not going to do a full pregame show, but we'll probably talk about it a little bit after.
Yeah, well, we're
But-
expecting to see you.
But we'll be live for the whole game, and we'll do a pregame 6 to 7. So just so you guys know, not 8 o'clock tomorrow, 6 o'clock we'll be live, and then we'll be switching over to our live stream for the game at 7.
There you go. All right. Until tomorrow, be there. Watch the game with us. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. Stay blessed. And
Peace.
we'll
Love you
catch you.
guys.
Peace.
Peace.